Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, as we welcome you here to Race 2 of Season 2 for the G-Force Hijinx Clothing 87 Series, getting ready to go racing in the North Carolina 200, live from Rockingham Speedway. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Anthony McCreary, and Anthony, the mayhem, the excitement of Daytona last week leads us here into the second race of the season, and last week we saw a little bit of everything. We saw wrecking, we saw flipping, we saw the big one, we saw an exciting finish, and we saw drivers going slideways into the corner at a 2.5 mile super speedway. Today we're here at Rockingham, so it gets easier, right?
Yeah, you would think so, but this track is a lot dangerous, or very dangerous in terms of tire wear. The tires are going to be on fire all race long. Rockingham is known for its really rough surface and a tire-killing racetrack, but that being said, it's a lot shorter. Speeds will not be as high. These drivers might be a little bit more apt to maybe slow down a little bit. We had the fast, high-speed banks of Daytona just north up here is, Rockingham. So maybe some of that traveling might have given them a little bit of a thought, maybe to slow it down a bit. But we know that no one wants to go slow when they race.
Last week, it was all about the rookie sensation, Cooper Johnson, right place, right time, even wrecked over in turn 3, but was the one to cross the line as the race winner. But here tonight at Rockingham, I got a feeling we're going to be talking about a few veteran drivers, and some of them start up here on the front row. Jake Hounshell, who finished second here a year ago, Hank Steinmiller, and Blaine Atkin, who was the defending winner of this race. That's the top three. So what do you think? Veteran experience going to come into play here at a track as technical as Rockingham?
If practice was any indication, then it definitely seems to be the case, because a lot of these drivers that are veterans of the series did put down fastest laps during our practice session, and during qualifying we could see that our top four are made up of drivers who have been racing since last year. So yeah, a little bit of veteran experience does come into this track, because they have an advantage of they've raced with these cars on this track before. So they know how these cars are going to handle when they throw them into the turns, and they also know how to survive for 200 laps here at Rockingham.
Couple of things before we go green. These drivers have 7 sets of tires available to them. I think they're going to need them all here today. No fast repairs for these drivers as well, so you run into trouble, you get damage, you got to ride it out for the remainder of this race as the green flag is out and we're underway at Rockingham. As see, for the most part, I think drivers try and pin it right down there the shorter way around the racetrack on that inside line, but as that right front tire heat starts to build up, it's going to be difficult for these drivers. They may have to migrate to that second lane.
Yeah, that outside line might be a bit easier on the tires going around. You kind of run a little bit of risk of sliding up the track and hitting the outside wall, but if your car feels more happy up there, then albeit do it. As you can see them flattening out on the inside of the racetrack, sparks flying off of these cars. This track is very old. It's a really, really old surface, and these cars, they're not exactly the newest cars in the world, so having a weird mix of this, you see the sparks just flying everywhere for these drivers. A weird mix of old, and I mean, these cars are going to have a battering all race long.
Speaking of battering, Randy Koken just battered at the outside wall there through 3 and 4, as he was, I don't know if he was trying to get out of the way of Christopher Morse Jr. or just has his hands full with that 19. Drops him from around 12th, now back to the 16th position. Got a car coming off of pit road. That's actually last week's winner. Missed the start, did Cooper Johnson. Right now scored 3 laps down, so he's going to be hoping to see a caution-filled race at least early on, get enough lucky dogs to get back up onto the lead lap and into competition.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened with the 14, other than he might not have been prepared and just flat out missed the start, but that car is up to speed with everybody. Oh, whoa, a car in front of him did slam the wall. I think that was Koking. No, that was a guy right in front of him. I think that was David White that smacked the wall.
He was able to gather it back up. As up at the front inside the top 5, we got some great battling. It was a nose-to-tail battle between Gerald Campbell and Blaine Atkin. Jake Hounshell has actually dropped from the lead back to the 4th position and is under fire from Kyle Johnson. So battle for 1st, battle for 4th going on right now. We got a spin in the back. Someone's off the pace. It's the 19 car again. I don't know if he completely looped it around, but obviously way off the pace, losing more positions, and now dropping outside of the top 20.
Yeah, he's got something majorly wrong with that 19 machine. Maybe the setup is not to his liking, something wrong with the steering. I know he's got to have some kind of steering damage after getting into the wall that hard, but just trying to limp it around the racetrack at the moment. He's underneath the 71 of Todd Seaburn, who is not having a good race at all. Both of these drivers need to figure out a way to get to the front because they're falling off the lead pack very quickly.
Battle on for the lead. Blaine Atkin to the inside of Gerald Campbell, pushes up there almost into the driver's side door of the 31 as he moves him up and will take the top position. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of our passes take place here today, out at turn 4 and under the front straightaway. Rockingham almost kind of very similar to Darlington in the form that one end of the racetrack is entirely different from the other. Turns 3 and 4, you can almost run flat out. There's not a whole lot of banking, but over here, there's an extreme difference of banking, especially in turn 1 that these drivers have to deal with. And so I think it's going to be all about survival in the first 2 corners and then setting up the passover in the second 2 corners.
Absolutely. The front straightaway kind of has a weird bow in the middle of it. It's like a dog leg, but it's kind of inconsistent, and then it tapers into a very, very hard left-hander. And as you can see, to the inside of the racetrack again goes Campbell. Can he get the move done in turn 1? He's certainly going to have a go at it, and he does. Flawlessly done for the 31 is now Blaine Atkins going to fall into the clutches of Hank Steinmiller. Does Steinmiller put a nose to the inside? A little bit too far back, thought better of it. We're still only 9 laps into the race, so plenty of time to make up positions. But yeah, to your point, turns 1 and 2, definitely going to be the most treacherous spot. And when the tires start going bad, that's when you're going to have to trace your way through turn 1 and 2 a little bit easier, knowing that if you carry too much speed in there, you got a one-way ticket to the outside wall.
There are 4 drivers. Talked about experience here at Rockingham specifically. Only 4 drivers in the field here tonight raced Rockingham last season. One of them is running in the second position, Blaine Atkin, who was the defending winner of this race. Jake Hounshaw, who started on the pole, he finished second here a year ago. Christopher Morse Jr., who we saw is slicing his way through the field, currently up to 12th. He finished 4th here, and John Whitendorf finished in 9th. So are those the 4, maybe the Fantastic 4 we're looking at, that maybe those ones will be around at the end?
I think so. I think that they're going to be the ones that might have the most experience. Well, they're definitely going to have the most experience of how to get around this track in this car set, but some of these drivers that haven't exactly raced at this track in these cars are doing pretty well as well. If you look back in the 6th position, you have Seth Harrelson, who's doing really well, kind of running in a little world of his own. No one really in front of him, more behind him. He's got big gaps, does that 07, but he's doing really well to keep up with this lead group. Anthony Graneri in the 16 is running a 7th right behind. So a lot of these drivers, maybe they don't have as much experience at Rockingham, but they do have experience in the car. So if you can figure out how to get around the track for 200 laps, and you might be up there towards the end and give it a shot to some of these veterans.
And of course, these drivers not hopping into the car for the first time here tonight with the setup. They actually are given the setup at the start of the following week for preparation for the next week's race. So you'll definitely be able to tell who's put in the track time and who has not, as that battle for second starting to close up. Blaine Atkin looked like he was going to challenge Gerald Campbell. I almost wonder if maybe he used up his stuff a little too soon there in his attempt to get the race lead, and now he's paying the price for it.
Yeah, you got to pace yourself in these cars, and it's a long race, and your fuel run is going to last longer than your tires are, so it's kind of a dance of really how do you get around the track and conserve your tires as long as a fuel stint can go. And I think that Atkin might have done it a little bit wrong. Hounshaw on the inside of the racetrack, however, he's going to try and get back up to the front of the race. He's gotten on the inside of the 88 of Kyle Johnson, so now Hounshaw moves back into the 4th place position after losing it a couple laps ago. A lot of drivers are going to have to figure out how to find that balance. Seth, what is the balance? Do you have to go for all-out pace, or do you think longevity is going to be the key to win this race? Because if you get a phantom caution or a wreck that brings out a caution, that could throw any strategy you have out the window.
Well, you look at the field we had coming into this race, about 22 drivers in the field. Rockingham is a tire killer, and usually drivers are going to be more focused on conserving those Goodyears than they are in really trying to battle with each other, because you battle with each other, someone's going to be running the line that's going to be really wearing down that right front tire. So when you come to Rockingham, I think really you have to head into that race with a long green flag run mentality. So to your point, I think it has to be all about longevity for these drivers. They have to preserve these tires. Of course, they've got 7 sets, but if you consider that in the span of the 200 laps they've got, you're talking about, maybe 32, 33 laps that you would have to run before you can come down and change those Goodyears. And to a driver on worn tires only 10 laps in, that final 20, 22 laps seems like an eternity.
Indeed. So, I want to make note of something. If you look on the screen right now, you're seeing the 44 with clear track in front of him. That's because the leader, Jared Campbell's had some connection issues. So we're not really sure what's happened to him. A lot of drivers, if you look back, have had connection issues. Not really sure why there's been that many have connection issues, but it is benefiting one driver, and that is Cooper Johnson, who's actually leapfrogged up to 21st. So there is some bright side to this. He actually moved up to 20th now.
Yeah, 4 drivers having connection problems, and it hit all of a sudden. I can only assume it has something to do with the server itself. Campbell, as you mentioned, from the lead, Blake Ripley in the 21, Jason Hounshell in the 00, and Jackson McLaren in the 7. All dropping out of the server at the exact same time. And of course, the heartbreak there has got to be for Gerald Campbell, because he was leading this race and actually pulling away from what right now would have been a battle for second, but now by consequence of the 31 not being the lead anymore, it's actually a 2, actually make it 3-way battle for the lead as Hounshell enters the picture.
Yeah, and they got a lap car. They got to get around. Ooh, Atkin got a little bit squirrely out of turn 4 and almost set the car around, but they get around the lap machine A-OK. All 3 of them do. Hounshell on the very inside of the racetrack actually had a couple of tires down below the yellow line. That could have ended in a disaster, but he keeps the car going straight. That was a 71 of Sebring. They've just put a lap down, so one car is going to be trying to get his lap back, and you have the 3 that's still battling for the lead. And now the 88 is going to come and put him a lap down.
Driver that has picked up the most spots since we went green, the 3 of Christopher Morris, the black and silver Intimidator colors back on his Chevrolet, as he started 17th and just now took the 7th position away from James Roth. So I wonder just how much of his tires he has been able to save in his march through the field.
I don't know, but he's got a really good pace going on right now. He's going to be one of the favorites to win this race. He had a strong running at Daytona, and he's coming up through the field because he actually didn't put a qualifying lap down. So he had to start at the back of the pack and has done a fantastic job making his way up, now 7th place. He's got a bit of a way to go before he runs down the 16 of Granary, I'd say about 3 seconds to the 16. So a little bit of work to do, but if he gets a lucky caution or if he can get the pace going, he might be able to get back to the front and see if he can pull something out of this.
Jake Hounshell drove it deep there into turns 1 and 2 as we got a driver in trouble on the apron. I think that might have been David White in the 83. He was down out of harm's way. We remain green. But Hounshell looks like he's attacking a little bit more. And I almost wonder, he was the leader. We then looked, he was back to 4th. I wonder if he let those guys go by, if he actually had himself into the mentality of going into the long green flag run, saving his tires, and then when they were worn and everybody else was out there on threads, then he could pounce and try and work his way back up to the front.
That might be the case. We've seen some drivers do that before. I think back there, the 88 just almost spun around, but he saved it. Goodness gracious. Now we're starting to see where the tires are going to start wearing off, because the 88 almost was having a one-way trip into the inside wall, but good save on the part of Kyle Johnson.
It's going to bring Seth Harrelson, though, closer to his back bumper. And, of course, as well, you have a car that nearly spins out on you. It's not only going to be that right front you got to worry about, it is going to cook those rear tires. And at a track like this, you need that rear grip off the corner.
Absolutely. That's it's one of the most key things at this track is to get powered down. Look at the way the 88 is bobbling around. There's something amiss on the 88 machine. Now, Harrelson's going to try and capitalize on that. He's moved up to 5th place by way of some fast driving, so he's going to try and take the position away from Johnson. Good dogfight going on for 4th place. Oh, there's a car that's on fire in front. The caution's out.
That's the 19 of Randy Coking that's down on the apron. Engine has expired, as you can clearly see on his machine, and that will be the first caution of the night, as he's going to bring that wounded car. Well, I thought he was coming to pit road, but I guess pits might be closed at this point. He'll probably come down next time by. Let's see if we can find out what happened to him.
I want to bet that it might be because of coming out of one of the turns, he might have got it sideways. That car was damaged to begin with, so might have just been a solo spin.
Turn 2 is where it happens, and yep, right there, snaps around on him, hard into the inside wall, and again, hits like this is more than likely going to take you out of the race, because there are no fast repairs available to these drivers in tonight's 200 lapper.
Yeah, and that's a huge shot that the 19 took. So if it's terminal engine damage, and that might be a send off for the 19 team, but that I think it's kind of gotten these other drivers that have had some handling issues on the long run that you got to conserve your stuff because you don't want to have that happen to you if you're one of the leaders. But Koking, he was having problems at the start of the race and just I guess just got on the throttle a little bit too much. That right front looked a little poorly. Did that the right front tire anyway? So that might have had something to do with it. But tough break for the 19.
I think we're going to see a lot more of that the longer runs go on because there's three things that are working against these drivers in terms of grip off the corner. Number one, we already documented this quite a bit last week at Daytona, that low spoiler not giving you much downforce when you come off the turn, so your car's going to be loose. Also, you've got the fact that those rear tires, they're going to be wearing away, and so they're not going to give you much grip on corner exit. But the other thing, too, these drivers only have a 85% fuel capacity, so that fuel is going to go down quickly. When the fuel gets empty, the car's back end gets lighter, and that's another issue they have to deal with that's going to make that thing feel light.
Oh yeah, that and combined with the power that these cars have, it gets really easy to start spinning your rear tires. A combination of everything that we just mentioned, and you also bring in the fact that these things are powerhouses. A lot of horses under this car and low downforce. We saw it at Daytona where they were starting to slide through the turns when the tires started to get wearing out. We're going to see it here, just not at 200 miles an hour, but still, it can be just as treacherous as Randy Koking is all too sadly familiar with.
Now you're seeing the 14 go around. There is the 00 going around. We have been notified that iRacing is having some server issues. That's why we saw those four drivers disconnect at the exact same time. Two of them have returned back in, Jason Hounshell and Jackson McLaren. And so this caution kind of timely because the admins are now allowing those drivers that returned back in to go back around and get their laps back since they were all running on the lead lap at the time that the server had its issue.
Now that's really cool of the server admins allowing them to do that. And I mean, it's just right. If something goes out beyond your control, then you need to get your laps back. So good on them for doing that. And as you see, they got a long way to go if they want to get all their laps back. I'm not sure if they'll be able to do it in the span of this caution period, but certainly if they get another yellow, the pace truck lights are still on, so they might be able to get it back within this yellow flag as they go around yet again. But we have a very interesting top two as Bo Brady and Blaine Atkin. Well, actually, not Blaine Atkin. He just came down, but Bo Brady seems to think that he can go 31 laps and be as competitive as these guys behind him. I don't know if that is strategy staying out or if he's going to come down and get some tires, but not sure what the 20's doing.
Well, from last season, Bo Brady and Kyle Johnson always seemed to be the two drivers that had the outside-the-box strategy. Usually, they were the ones that would short pit ahead of everybody else, getting them off sequence. But it looks like here, Bo Brady deciding to do something entirely on the opposite side of the spectrum with staying out. He's going to get eaten up by the fresh tires behind him because everybody that came down pit road from the 44 on back, they took on a fresh set of tires. So I think right now for Blaine Atkin, he's either thinking one of two things. He's either thinking maybe he'll get another quick caution and not lose that many positions, or he could already be playing ahead for the end of this race, maybe setting aside that extra set of tires for a late race restart. We know tires are going to be so important for grip here at Rockingham. He might already be thinking about that.
Yeah, for sure. That could be one of those alternate strategies that at the end of the race, we all go back and look at, oh, that's the move that won him the race. But at this point, it does seem a little abnormal for him to be the only one to do it. But again, you never know. He probably knows something that I definitely don't know. We both definitely don't know. But, Bo Brady always bringing out the hat tricks or the tricks out of his hat. So it's going to be fun to see how this one plays out, Seth.
Again, just to clarify for people, we are under a rather long pacing period. This is giving the admins time to be able to get everybody that fell out of the server to be able to get their laps back. So we may not see the 1 to green even this time. They may end up pacing another lap or two before we eventually get them back under the green flag. While that's happening, let's take the opportunity here to talk about the point standings coming into this race. Obviously, last week's finishing results at Daytona pretty much determining who is where coming into this race. But some of the names that we talked about at the top of the broadcast of ones to watch, they're actually up there towards the top of the point stands as well. Cooper Johnson's obviously the points leader, 5 points in hand over Blaine Akin, the defending winner of this race. Jay Counchell, who started on the pole for this one, he's third in points, 10 points back. Then you got John Whitendorf in fourth. Ryan Gavel is not in the field tonight. He was fifth coming in. The rest of the top 10, Christopher Morse, Jason Hounshell, Richard Cairo is not in the field tonight. He was eighth. Anthony Guarneri and James Roth. I mean, we've got, I believe, 8 of those 10 drivers in the field here tonight. Right now, the ones that have looked like they've been able to make the most so far of this race have been Akin, Jake Hounshell rather, Christopher Morse, and Anthony Guarneri.
Yeah, these drivers, I've seen that there's only 8 that were in the top 10 coming from Daytona into this one. So a lot of these drivers that are a little bit behind some of the drivers that didn't show up are thinking, oh, okay, we can capitalize now and get some free positions. And I think it's just lit a fire under them that good finish at Daytona is going to carry on into this next race. Now, it's a long season. We're only working race 2 of a lot. So a long season, you want to set your season up well, though, and considering that they don't have a playoff in this series, they want to be consistent. They want to get good, consistent finishes, and I gotta say, I'm really impressed with a couple of these drivers. Let's take James Roth, for example. He finished 10th last race. He's running 10th in the standings, but he's doing really well in the 4 car. We honestly thought that 4 machine was not going to make it to the end of the race, given the state of the car, the state of how the car was handling, but he did make it to the end and got into 10th place. Now find himself running in 10th place here. I would look out for that 4 car. He is running top 10 in the standings and top 10 in this race, but he might be a sleeper this season.
Like one driver that will not be a factor will be Randy Koken. He still sits on pit road getting damage repaired as the older tires of Bo Brady going to lead us to the green flag, and we're back underway at Rockingham. He got himself a decent restart, but I think we're going to see the true tale of tires here on this one restart lap.
Absolutely. Already you can see Atkin kind of reeling him in, and Bo Brady got a whale of a restart. He's checked out a little bit, but it's going to catch up to him. You can't keep the speed through the turns as well as you could on fresh tires. Here he comes. Blaine Atkin has got a rocket coming out of 4, and I think that he's going to catch him by the time they get into turn 1. Too far back, can't make the move yet, but set himself up. He might go for it going into turn 3 or out of turn 4. As they come out, it's still right up to the rear end of the 20.
Kill pounced in turn 4. That's been his bread and butter so far here today as Anthony Guarneri makes his way around Seth Harrelson, and Atkin on the back bumper. Maybe a little contact pushing the 20 up the track. He will get to the left rear quarter panel going into turn 1. Let's see if he can make the pass cleanly. Car got a little loose, slides up about a half groove, but he does have the advantage off the corner, and whoa! He won't quite clear Bo Brady as Brady got loose off of 2. That stacks everybody up.
And now it's a 5-car fight for the lead of the race, and Bo Brady's going to get freight trained on the inside of the racetrack. I got to give credit to Brady, though. He held his own longer than I thought he would. 3 wide back there for 5th. Down the inside, Anthony Guarneri in the 16, sticking the 16 down to the inside of the racetrack, and there's hook. The 20 has hooked around. I believe that is the 07 of Harrelson, and they've gone spinning into the inside wall.
And Harrelson hit hard, and now even more contact there between himself and the 20 of Bo Brady, as those 2 drivers were running up inside of the top 10, just outside of the top 5. And I think that if we go back and we look at this, I think that the 20 we saw before, he had his hands full when Blaine Atkin was making the move on him for the race lead. I think that may have been the same case here of just those old tires not gripping off of the corner and possibly spinning down off of turn 2.
I don't know about that one. There were some tempers flaring after the wreck happened. Bo Brady was not happy with Harrelson. I think Harrelson came up onto Brady coming out of turn 2, and I don't think he really knew he was there.
Yeah, you can clearly see that the 20 kind of targeted at 07 afterwards, and we'll go back and look at another angle from it. You're right. I think the 07 tried to clear himself, was not clear, and Bo Brady probably frustrated because his strategy was working out. He was getting out of the way of the faster cars and doing it cleanly, keeping his car in one piece, and now he, along with Harrelson, both have damaged goods.
Now, he wanted a yellow to come out, I guarantee it, but I don't think he intended to be the yellow. And yeah, I just think that Harrelson I don't know if he knew that Brady was up the track. I mean, he knew he was up there. I just didn't know if he knew he was clear. He did have a good run, but I think he just tracked up the racetrack. I would chalk that up to a racing deal, but definitely I think Brady was feeling otherwise. There was a huge shot to Harrelson at the end of that one, and I can wholeheartedly say there's going to be words thrown at the end of this one.
Well, Rockingham isn't really considered a short track, but I guess in terms of the racing style, we could certainly ramp it up there with certain short tracks that we're familiar with. So definitely no surprise to see some tempers flaring. And the thing of it is, too, you touched on it. We're early in the season. Those grudges could carry over for the entirety of this year.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to make enemies at this point in the season, especially if you know that they are the ones that will hold a grudge. Get to race 20, you think everything's fine, but remember what happened back on race 2? I still remember that, and I am in a battle for a championship, and you're in a battle for a championship. You're about to win a race. I don't think you are anymore, and you just a slight tap of the rear end, and all of a sudden you go for the lead from the lead all the way down to last place. So tempers and grudges, they will hold through an entire season. We've seen it hand over fist a lot of times in a lot of different leagues, and I don't think this one's going to be any different. But Brady versus Harrelson, we'll have to keep our eye on it. That might be one that might carry over. I don't know. I don't know what the temperament of both those drivers are. Maybe it'll be a one race thing and it'll blow over, but definitely building the lore of this series.
No doubt about it. Cooper Johnson actually got back on the lead lap. I believe it was under the last caution, and I believe the lucky dog under this yellow will be the 71 of Todd Seaburn. So we'd have 17 drivers on the lead lap. Anthony, I'm going to have you check on this because we mentioned that Jason Hounshaw and Jackson McLaren actually came back in and they were trying to get as many laps back as they could under that pacing period. They are now grayed out on my screen again. I don't know if they fell out again or if they manually disconnected. So we'll follow up on that and see what the case is with those two drivers.
Yeah, they're also out on my screen. We'll have to look and see what's going on with them. I think it might be connection related because it was the same drivers that disconnected earlier in the race. I have a sinking suspicion it is, but I can go verify really quick and see what happened. They did have almost all of their laps back at the end of that yellow period. We'll have to quickly see what's up with that.
Blake Ripley and Gerald Campbell, who were others that were involved in that connection problem back during the first green flag run, they have not returned to the server. And right now, Campbell, who was leading at the time, by the way, when his problems occurred, he is going to, looks like, finish in 22nd. And that's huge because he came in just outside of the top 10 in points, 11th in the standings.
Yeah, and that's it's going to be a huge shot to his championship hopes. I mean, it's still early on in the race, but you don't want to have as much bad luck as possible. You want to be able to keep momentum throwing throughout the entire season and just build on it. And having DNFs or bad results is not a good way to have your championship hopes stay alive. But still race 2, still plenty of time to make that up though, but still not a good situation to be in.
Battle for the lead. Hank Steinmiller got to the inside and clears Blaine Atkin out of turn 2. You talk about a driver looking for some Daytona redemption. Last week, Hank Steinmiller was able to finish 13th with a damaged race car. Probably should have finished outside of the top 20, but he gained some points to be sure. Now he's trying to put himself in victory lane here tonight at Rockingham.
Absolutely. A big run also. Still on the inside, Atkin Houndshell battling side by side. Take a look at Graneri around the outside. I just looked back there. Graneri made a beautiful pass on the outside of the racetrack around Kyle Johnson. He's on a tear right now. Here comes the 16 going for the move on the 44. Graneri might be one that we have to look forward to at the end of this race.
Certainly has a fast car and certainly a strong race car, as you mentioned, using the outside line. The only problem is that outside line, not a whole lot of grip out there, so how much of his tire is he using in his attempt to take the longer way around the racetrack? And it looks like the 7 and the 00, they have returned back into the service, so it was another connection issue. Also, we have scored out of the race now the 22 of Bruce Pearson. So we'll update on whether or not this was a manual disconnect or not if he does return back to the server. And this is affecting leagues all across the board here. I'm hearing of 2-3 other leagues that are having nearly 50% of their field disappearing. So it is just something we're going to have to deal with here during the course of the night. And these drivers up here at the front just thanking their lucky stars that they're not the ones that are dropping out.
Yeah, the iRacing gods, as it would be, would looking favorably on our top 5 right now. I don't want to put the commentator's curse on it, but they might be lucky throughout this one. Certainly, I don't think we've seen an outage quite like this in a long time for iRacing. It certainly hasn't affected a lot. I say that, and I think that they had some pretty bad ones happening during the 24 Hours of Daytona, but that was a long time ago, about a month ago now. So I don't know. It's big servers, a lot of leagues. Sometimes the things get backed up, and iRacing, I'm sure, does not want this to happen, and they're trying their best to get this all to get sorted out. But for the meantime, we do have some good racing happening in our race right now as Houndshell on the back of Steinmiller, battle for the lead heating up. Does that 0-2 try to sneak around him, or does he stay content to run second place and ride it out, conserve some tires? Because we still have a long way to go. We're only about 25% way through the race, so you got to get to the end, and you only have 7 sets of tires to work with. You've already used 1, so you don't want to have to use more than you need to, especially if it comes down to a late race caution that you need to throw on some extra rubber to have an advantage on. So managing your tires throughout the rest of the race is going to be key, but I think they put themselves in a position to do it if they can run about, I think, 36, maybe 40 laps on a stint.
Yeah, right now, Jake Houndshell is kind of between a rock and a hard place. I think he's pretty content to ride behind the 63, but at the same time, he's got Blaine Akin right up his gearbox, and I think Steinmiller sees that 0-2 wants by. He's actually going to move up out of the way and allow Jake Houndshell to move to the front. It's the first time that Jake Houndshell has been out in front since we went green to start this race. He faded back outside of the top 3 and now finally works his way back up into that clean air. And oh, by the way, those drivers that I mentioned, those 4 drivers that finished inside the top 10 last season, they're all up inside the top 10 right now. The furthest back, John Whitendorf, just moved into the 10th position.
Yeah, and he's got a pretty fast car as well. He just put the 81 of Shane Lake outside the top 10. Now going to work on the 91 of Peyton Hamlet. Peyton Hamlet had a really good Daytona. He didn't, well, everyone kind of faded at the end of the race, but Peyton Hamlet, oh, goodness gracious, why do I say things? The 91's just gone spinning out of turn 2 and stopped dead on the back straightaway, and that's going to be a caution. Didn't hit anything, so everything is still fine, but man, that could not have been worse timing.
Well, if Peyton Hamlet wasn't the caution, Kyle Johnson very nearly would have been, as he was sideways going into turn 3. So yellow flag waves a quarter of the way through this race for the 3rd time here tonight. Let's go back and see what happened to that 91.
I think it was just him getting loose off of turn 2. Certainly carried a lot of speed, trying to stay in front of John Whitendorf, and then I think, yeah, oh, he got a little bit of the apron.
He did. Definitely got those left sides either on or below the yellow line, and the cars we already saw early on when the tire pressures are low on restarts are sparking off that corner, so no doubt the car is bottoming out, and when the car bottoms out, it's actually quite a handful to get straight once you get onto the backstretch in Thunder Alley.
Oh, absolutely, but you gotta give him some major props for getting on the brakes and stopping the car before hitting the inside wall. No damage on the 91, and that's, I think, something he's going to be the most relieved about, is he was able to get out of that one scot-free, because that could have ended very differently.
One of my favorite camera angles with these cars. Watch the hands here of Peyton Hamlet. He realizes he's in trouble, that the car's going around, immediately, instinctually turns the wheel to the right to counter steer, and that was a great job, you're right, of not going down, hitting that inside wall, because we saw earlier on in this race, if you clobber it, in the case of Randy Koking, your race is pretty much done.
Yeah, no, that was some of the best piece of driving. It's some of the best crash recovery that we've seen out of this race so far. So again, good on the 91 of Hamlet for keeping it off the wall. And that is kind of a blessing in disguise for our driver of the 20. Well, Bo Brady ended up with a lot of damage anyway, so he didn't It didn't really benefit him this time around, but Brady will have that caution and maybe do some more damage repair on the 20. So staying on the lead lap is the most important thing that the 20 needs to do right now. So that caution came out timely for him. And you mentioned Randy Koking. He's still running on the racetrack. He's on the pit road right now getting some more damage fixed, but that 19 is still running, albeit 13 laps down, but not giving up quite yet.
Well, I mean, with the fact that we've ended up having maximum now of 5 drivers that have fallen out due to some connection problems, I mean, those are positions that he could pick up if indeed they don't return back to the server. I don't know if I updated this, but the 22 of Bruce Pearson has gotten back into the server as well, currently running 5 laps down 17th. And you're going to see a lot of drivers going around the outside here trying to get as many laps back as they can under pacing. We saw Bo Brady go with the strategy earlier on in this race. It looks like 2 other drivers have adapted that strategy here for this restart. Christopher Morse Jr. and James Roth. They're the top 2, and they'll be leading the field to green on 27, well, probably about 29, 30 lap old tires once we finally get back under the green flag.
Yep, the 3 and the 4 are going to be leading the 63 and the 44. So, the numbers have just gotten smaller, but those drivers, they're on that alternate strategy. We saw it work for Brady for a little while. Morse needs track position. He had to start all the way at the back of the pack. He finds himself leading the race at the moment. He's going to have a much slower cars compared to the guys behind him, but maybe he thinks that if James Roth can be some distractions for those drivers, might be able to use him as a bit of a pick and maybe gap the field just a little bit, because you're going to have Steinmiller, Atkin, Hounshow, Graneri, and Johnson, Whitendorf, and the other Johnson having to get by him. So, for Morse, if he can get another lucky caution, he might be able to get back on the right strategy, and that is crucial for the 3 at the moment. For James Roth, second place, not too shabby for the 4.
Absolutely not, as it's going to be the number 3 of Christopher Morse Jr., the defending champion of the series. He's going to be leading them back to green on lap 58 of 200. He's going to get himself a decent restart as well and leave Hank Steinmiller to have to try and get around the Kodak Chevrolet for second place.
Man, he really did have a rocket of a restart. He's already now coming out of turn 2 as everyone is trying to chase after him. James Roth trying to play defense against Steinmiller, but Steinmiller with the fresh tires to the inside. Can he hold on to it? Whoa, Roth washes straight up the racetrack and almost clobbers the outside wall. Gets it going again, but look at the speed difference between Steinmiller and Morse. Morse had a really good gap, but now it's fading away as Steinmiller's coming in. I'd pay attention to James Roth. Those are 3 wide between him and Houndshell. Put Johnson on the inside and they're spinning. There goes Houndshell up through the air, and they've gotten clobbered in by the 81.
Shane Lake, Peyton Hamlin in the 91 also involved as cars scatter to avoid James Roth. Someone just got him there late. Couldn't tell who that was. Might possibly have been the 22 of Bruce Pearson. So a 5-car incident off of turn 2. And again, all of this leading up, this wreck, it's the second time we've had a wreck that has taken place with drivers off tire sequence, kind of holding up the other drivers on the fresher tires.
And it was another 3-wide situation. Although the last time they pulled 3 wide, they were able to make it work. This time, however, did not work. And I think that the 02 of Houndshell just came down the racetrack a little bit, got into the 88, and then that sent the 02 straight up the racetrack. Actually, it wasn't really, I'm looking at it, it wasn't really that big of a shot.
No, not really. Then they took a shot because I think Peyton Hamlet gets into the back of Shane Lake, and the both of them slide into this incident.
Yeah, not really anywhere for them to go. They really didn't see what was happening in front of them, and they were trying to come in. I think Shane Lake might have gotten on the brakes a little bit, and I don't think Hamlet quite knew what he was doing, and I think Hamlet's the one who ran into Lake, and then that sent them shooting into the 2 that were spinning.
And that shot right there was very detrimental for the 81 in the fact that the direction he was spinning, he probably would have hit door to door with the 02 of Jake Houndshell, which obviously you don't want that kind of damage, but because he was trying to drive it and correct it, he then hit with the nose first, and that's going to really hurt that car for the remainder of this race.
Yeah, he took a shot to the right rear as well. He hit the 4 of Roth with the right rear and then smacked the 02 with the front end. So huge damage for the 81. And we talked about how good the 91 had been getting on the brakes and avoiding that crash earlier. And, it just finds itself caught up in someone else's problem. And, the track is small. And when something like that happens, it can be detrimental for someone trying to get back around them. And especially if it happens so quickly, there's no time to get on the brakes.
Christopher Morse Jr. giving up the lead to come down pit road. He'll turn the lead over to the 63 of Hank Steinmiller. We're working our fourth caution of the night here in the North Carolina 200, race number 2 of season 2 of the G-Force Hijinx Clothing Company Cup Series. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break. You're not going to miss anything. We'll be back for the restart after we go FRN side by side.
Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCars. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and team. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you can only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engine.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
Green flag set to come back out here at Rockingham Speedway. As the field now in the hands of Hank Steinmiller. He leads Blaine Atkin, Anthony Guarneri, Kyle Johnson, and John Whitendorf back to the green.
And Blaine Atkin definitely wanted to get going. He ran into the back of Steinmiller as if to say, all right, it's time to go. We got to go, 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 go. And then Steinmiller was able to get away from Atkin, and now Atkin trying to reel it back in. Battle for the third place is now going to be between Johnson and Guarneri. Johnson sails it into turn 3, shoots Guarneri up the racetrack. Here comes the 88 with a whale of a run on the 44.
Kyle Johnson all of a sudden makes an appearance inside of the top 3, now trying to reel in Blaine Atkin for second place. These are 2 drivers that have been really aggressive on the last couple of restarts. Guarneri was involved on the inside of a couple of 3-wide situations. Of course, Kyle Johnson was on the inside of the 3-wide that went horribly wrong for the 0-2 of Jake Hounshaw, who, by the way, is back on the track, still on the lead lap, but now finds himself back in the 11th position. That's a driver that started this race from the pole and pretty much had stayed up in the top 3 for the first 50 laps of this race.
Yeah, now he's got to deal with a car that's got some damage on it to the inside of the one that he got clipped with. Oh! Ooh, that could have been bad, but I think they all got through it.
That was James Goshen and James Roth that got together off of turn 2, but yes, they all kept it straight, kept it going. We stay green.
I think that Todd Seaburn might have gotten a piece of the wall out of that as well. Not sure, he was slow coming out of down the back straightaway, although that might have been to avoid what was happening. So far, everyone's starting to track up, especially the middle of the pack. It seems everyone's starting to track up and use that outside line. Not sure if that's got an advantage or not, but we've seen a couple of cars do it. Certainly the 7 is doing it. He's 5 laps down at this point. But Roth a couple of times. We've seen White, Seaburn, Brady. They're all tracking up to the outside line. Maybe because their car's having some issues handling, or is that due to tires? Or what do you think that's causing some of the mid-pack cars to go up to the outside?
I think that maybe what it could be is when you're running in the wake of another driver's draft, a lot of times you end up carrying a lot more speed down the straightaway than you fully expect to, and then you aren't able to compensate for that extra speed going into the corner, and Hence, all that speed carries you up a half groove, maybe a full groove higher than you want to go. Another thing that we also could have coming into play here as well is the fact that there's that aero tightness that you might be experiencing, and that might be not allowing you to turn your car through the center of the corner.
Yeah, that's something that these cars have to deal with more than anything else, is that because of the lack of aerodynamics, it can get to the point where that lack of aerodynamics is going to mean that your car is not going to be kind of suited to where you want to go. And any little thing that shifts the weight of the car, especially if a gust of wind, the draft, anything that gets the car unhappy, you're not going to be able to really do much about it. So a lot of these drivers with aero damage, experiencing the lack or even more lack of aerodynamics is going to be experiencing it the most. So a lot of those drivers are going to have to deal with that. Kyle Johnson and Blaine Atkin are running down Steinmiller. You think Steinmiller might have gone into tire conservation mode rather than all-out speed? Because we still got a long way to go. We're not quite to halfway yet. And I think a lot of these drivers are just focusing on getting to the end of the race with the tires that they've got left.
Yeah, right now, Kyle Johnson and Blaine Atkin have been running anywhere from 1 to 3/10 faster than Hank Steinmiller. To your point, I think he absolutely is in tire conservation mode. We kind of saw that earlier on this race, too, when he had Jake Hounshaw and Blaine Atkin behind him. He was kind of holding them up because he just wanted to run his own pace. He then moved out of the way, allowing those drivers to go on by and race amongst themselves for the race lead. Cooper Johnson in the 14, as we mentioned earlier on this event, missed the start. Got back on the lead lap after a couple of cautions, and right now, our Daytona winner, running inside of the top 10 in the 8th position. And as we know, the key to winning the championship this season is consistency. Pretty good comeback here for a driver that missed the start of this race.
You don't have to win every race, but you certainly have to be there. And, he has made the start. He did miss it, but he did get back in it, back on the lead lap. I gotta say, that's been a pretty good charge to the field. We saw a lot of drivers make comebacks at Daytona, and now we're seeing a lot of them do it again. Johnson, one of them, and I gotta be impressed with the 14. He knows the weight of carrying the win from last week into this week. He needs to have consistency, and you're right, Seth. It is going to be consistency that wins you the championship this year. So a top 10 finish, given the circumstances, that's a win. I would consider that a win if I had to start from the pit lane, go a lap down, and then find yourself now in a top 10, running down Jake Hounshaw. And albeit Jake Hounshaw's got some damage, so that car does not seem to be off the pace at all. Hounshaw has been able to hold his own with front end damage, so whatever damage there is on the O2, certainly not affecting him. Seth Harrelson also, he's got some damage as well, so both these cars with some damage doesn't seem to really be hurting them all too much.
Yeah, the one real difference between Rockingham and a short track, such as, let's say, Bristol, is the fact you've got longer straightaways, so the damage is going to affect you aero-wise on those longer straightaways.
Whoa.
But
Harrelson just smacked the inside wall coming out of 4. I'm sorry, made that 2.
And will we get a caution as he's trying to get that thing turned back around? Going to have to do about a 3-point turn in order to achieve it. Will stay down there on the bottom of the racetrack. No caution will come out for the spin for Seth Harrelson.
And again, I should learn not to say anything because we were just talking about how that car didn't seem to be off the pace, and lo and behold, he decides to spin around out of 2, and goodness gracious, something about turn 2 has got these drivers all kind of out of shape. It must be because turn 2 is so much tighter than turn 3. You're not able to carry as much speed, and I think that the banking is much more severe. The change of elevation, I should say, from the high line onto the straightaway is so much more severe than it is going down the front stretch, that the lack of air that you get pushing you down just sends you around out of turn 2 more than you would see it out of 4.
I mean, the spoiler's so low, I doubt there's very much air at all helping to push that back end down to the racing surface, as Blaine Atkin was closing up on Hank Steinmiller for the lead. Backed off a little bit there through 1 and 2, now charges again through 3 and 4, ran about maybe a half groove higher, then he ducked it low. Steinmiller entered low, then he drifted high, so they're starting to search for potential new lanes to be able to get runs or pull away, whichever the case may be.
It's always fun to watch how the race develops over the course of a run.
Wow!
And whoa, what a move the 44 just did. What a save. Getting around the 19 of coking. That was incredible. But it's fun to see just how much a race progresses over the course of a race, just how the line changes, the way the drivers drive around everybody, where everyone starts running. I mean, look at our top two. They've checked out from Kyle Johnson. It's about 2.5 seconds back to the 88. It was about 4 or 5 cars that was under a blanket for the moment. And then all of a sudden now you see it go. So I like seeing races, how they develop. And I love long races just so you can see what kind of stuff happens throughout the race that puts drivers in the position they're in. And right now, the outside line is still not being used by our leaders, but I would be surprised if it comes into effect, or I don't know how eager they are to use it, given that a lot of cars have spun coming out of turn 2 off the outside line, but it might be in their playbook for later on for sure.
Yeah, they might be testing the waters right now, but I think you're right. I don't think they really want to go up to that outside groove unless they're forced, kind of like right there, where John Whitendorf moved up out of the way of Christopher Morse Jr., allowing Morse to crack back into the top 5. Update on Seth Harrelson after his spin on the back straightaway. He got the car refired, continued on, but not before, as we saw, going a lap down. He is still out there, has not come to pit road, and a caution would save him because he right now is the only car running 1 lap down in 14th place. 15th, Bruce Pearson is 3 laps down. So regardless of what happens here, as long as he stays only -1, Seth Harrelson under the next caution would end up being the lucky dog, and we nearly just had our top 2 wreck off of turn 2.
We nearly just had Bo Brady wreck out of turn 3. So a lot of these cars are getting a little bit squirrely, as I think Brady was running by himself most of it. Hank Steinmiller is about to come and put him a lap down, provided that they can actually get to him with the way these two are racing.
I think right now we are into the longest run we've had so far in this race, 30 laps. These top 3, 4, 5 have all been out there on this set of tires, so we're starting to get a real idea of just how light that car gets when the fuel cell starts to empty.
Yeah, and Atkin was not wasting any time getting around Steinmiller either. It gets the move done through 3 and 4. Now he's going to set his sights on lapping the 20, as we're starting to see a lot of drivers are going to get under threat of going a lap down on the racetrack, as Atkin closing in on the 20. Then you've got, that would be, I think, the 83 of David White that's in front of him. So those two are in immediate danger of going down a lap. I'm sorry, that's a 23. It's the 83 on our scoring chart, but that's the 23 of David White that might be going a lap down very soon. So seeing a lot of drivers off the pace compared to the leaders, and now here comes Blaine Atkin to put the 20 of Brady a lap down.
Battle is going to be for 5th place. John Whitendorf did allow Christopher Morse Jr., so it seemed, to get around him for 5th place, but did not let him get away. And as those two battle, you've got that lap machine of Seth Harrelson that's closing in. And now with the fact you mentioned with Bo Brady going a lap down, that now moves Brady into the free pass position and Harrelson down second car 1 lap down. Now both drivers are out of the lucky dog spot as David White going to go a lap down to the race leaders and got the wall there off of turn 2 as well. Blaine Atkin has not had the best of luck catching up to drivers that are off the lead lap, because he usually seems to catch them off the exit of turn 2. That's when he has those slide moves down the back straightaway.
Yeah, we saw him earlier with going around, I believe that was the 19 of Coking, had to get around him. We're seeing it again coming out of 2 with the 20 and the 23. So, it's bad timing for a lot of these drivers around the racetrack. Like we said, it's not really a short track per se, but it's definitely got that short track feel, especially late in the run as we see a lot of cars start to slow down and get lapped by our leaders. But Atkin looks like his next victim is going to be Randy Coking again, going to put him yet another lap down. He's 19 laps down.
Riding on board the back bumper of the 3 of Chris Morris Jr. Watch the front end of the 33 of John Whitendorf right there off turn 2. You saw how the car kind of bogged down. There is a bump there. There is a dip. And then watch here through 3 and 4. I mean, that car is really not glued to the racing surface. Look at how that front bumper is bouncing off the racing surface there. So these drivers absolutely have their hands full with this old Rockingham surface.
Absolutely, and the fact that these cars have got a much softer suspension that we're used to seeing in some of the modern cars, those bumps really do hit hard. And watching around and trying to hold on to the car throughout the turns is going to be the hardest part for a lot of these drivers. Is a lot of them have done it pretty well. It's just a matter of really just holding the car down and hoping that the bumps don't send you straight out to the outside wall, especially with the low downforce. But Yeah, horse with a deck lid full of the 33 right up his bumper.
You just saw the 23 of David White coming off of pit road. He was just on pit lane getting some damage repaired moments ago. Returns back onto the track 14th, 3 laps down. Another driver that about 15 laps ago was on pit lane for an unscheduled stop was Peyton Hamlet. He right now runs 6 laps down in the 17th position. As things stand right now, prior to this 85 possibly being passed, 11 drivers on the lead lap, and now make it officially 10 as James Goshen is going to fall a lap down to Blaine Atkin.
Goshen, the latest to go a lap down. Next on the hit list would be Todd Seaburn. He's in the 71, although he is a little bit further ahead of Blaine Atkin. Has actually got a couple of cars between him and Atkin. We'll make that 1 or 2 cars between him and Atkin, although Seaburn is not the fastest on the racetrack. He's got some damage on the 71, and he's running a very high line. Around the racetrack, I think he got a piece of the wall out of turn 3.
Well, I think they're racing for, well, actually, I thought it was for position. Trying to figure out who that driver was that was battling with Seaburn. Oh, that's actually the 71 on the top side, and actually Houndshell on the bottom, Jason Houndshell. And Blaine Atkin really had to snake his way through those 2 cars.
I thought for sure he was going to get a piece down into turn 1, but he just saved it. Blaine Atkin is catching these drivers at very odd places, but now we only got, make that, James Goshen is now past Seaburn for 10th, so there's a pass for 10th place, so move Goshen back into the top 10. James Roth is the last car on the lead lap, only 9 cars on the lead lap now, but there is a much larger gap between Blaine Atkin and James Roth, as Roth is now going into turn 1. Atkin is now coming through turn 3, so bit of a racetrack still to go before that 4 cars are going to be lapped, so they're about a half a lap behind them.
I think that next car they're catching is the 22, who's already multiple laps down. Bruce Pearson holding down the 15th position, making his first start of the season here as well, is Bruce. So trying to see if he can salvage what he can at maybe one of the toughest tracks to try and make your debut at, Rockingham Speedway. Battle right now continues to be for that 5th position, where Christopher Morse Jr. and John Whitendorf still are about half a second separation between the two, but neither one have really been able to either get away or close up the gap much. I think they might be in ride mode right now.
I would think so, especially with the way that the tires are probably on fire right now. You don't want to have to force the issue and have something happen, especially coming out of turn 2, where we've seen a lot of our crashes happen today. So definitely in ride mode at the moment, just kind of feeling it out, seeing how the race goes on. Oh, I think that the 23 spun going on to pit road, and that brought up a point that I was going to ask. What happens when you got to make green flag stops and you haven't really practiced getting on a pit road? And I think that we just saw what happens.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be something we'll have to follow up on here, because we're getting close, I think, to when these drivers have to start thinking about coming down pit road. Almost 45 laps they've been out there now on this run, and while we weren't really given a target lap of how far these drivers could go on fuel, we do know they do not have the full 100% capacity. It's only 85% capacity, so they'll be on pit road sooner rather than later, and never got the opportunity to really see green flag pit stops at Daytona, and I wondered about the looseness of that rear spoiler, how that would come into play. You're coming onto a rather slick, flat apron off of turn 4 to make pit stops here at the Rock.
It's one of the harder pit stops to get done, and especially because getting onto pit road is so treacherous. This and Darlington are going to be the 2 hardest pit roads to get onto this season, so if you can get it done here, then you have a good shot to get it done in Darlington. But we're working about 46, make it 47 when we hit the stripe laps on a stent for the top 4. Then you have Christopher Morse, who's got a slightly more advantage. He's about 6 laps behind as far as a stint goes. I think the 19 of Coking might have slid into the wall. He's definitely very slow going through 1 and 2, but the leaders get around him okay. But that little extra that Morse has over some other guys might be a lot in terms of tires, because it's got a couple laps more that he is fresher. That translates to quite a bit of grip when you consider how fast the tires fall off, especially when you get later into a run. So those tires not as on fire as some of these other drivers, but now working 48 laps is the leaders, and I would assume that they're going to come down pretty soon. Although that being said, James Roth is out there on a 74 lap stint in the 4 car. So that is probably a better indication of how far these cars can go on a fuel run.
Also interesting as well to me that these drivers are about to hit their 50th lap on this set of tires, and so theoretically, whenever they decide to come to pit road from this point on, they would only probably have to pit one more time in this race. I said at the top of the broadcast, with the 7 sets they were given, they were probably going to have to use all of them. They could have as many as 2-3 sets available for late race restarts.
Yeah, and that could make all the difference in getting positions, especially if you have someone maybe staying out to gain track position. There goes the 7 to the outside wall right in front of our leaders, and that could have been bad, but I think that McLaren got it off the outside wall. And having those extra tire sets at the end of a race, definitely better than getting track position, I would feel, because if you can get track position on the racetrack with fresher tires, we've seen old tires versus new tires already twice so far in this race, and it's not ended very well for the people that stayed out to gain track position. So could you make it 2 laps? I think you could. Would it be difficult, especially knowing that some of these drivers really want to get to the front, especially if it may be a 3, 4, maybe even a 2-lap dash? I don't know if I would stay out. I think I would come down and get some fresh tires and maybe battle on the racetrack instead of having you being a sit and duck and waiting for everyone to just pass you.
The decision might actually be made easier at the closing stage of this race, depending on the pace that Blaine Akin and Hank Steinmiller put on here on this green flag run. I mean, right now we've only got 9 drivers on the lead lap. So, let's say that by the end of this run, we end up having maybe 7 on the lead laps. I think Jay Counshell and James Roth, they're not too far away from being next on the hit list of being put a lap down. If you figure in your head, the furthest back that I'm going to be if I come off pit road with a bad pit stop is 7th place, makes that decision a lot more easier.
Absolutely. And so the cars start to fall off the lead lap, and the damage control on whether or not you're going to have a good restart kind of goes away and out the window. Although, add another driver to that list, it would be, however many +1, because you would get a lucky dog to get around and add another car, but they would be starting behind you anyway, so you really don't lose too much in that exchange. So it would be worth to get tires and then, see if you can play an extreme version of Grand Prix 2 is basically what you'd have to do, is pass as many cars as you can and stay off the grass.
As we were on board with Hank Steinmiller, we could see the handling was going away in the rear end of that 44 of Blaine Akin. Hank Steinmiller patiently waited, made his move, and he now has gone to the point. Blaine Akin does not want to run behind him, though. He's still putting the pressure on the 63 to go back to the front. We do now officially have a couple more drivers that are retired out of the race. Shane Lake actually made his exit from the race about 50 laps ago, getting involved in that incident on the back straightaway. Randy Koking has now joined him in the garage area along with Peyton Hamlet. They're also back there with Gerald Campbell and Blake Ripley, who did not rejoin the server after we had some connection problems back in the first stint of this race. So as things stand right now, actually we got a driver pitting. As things stand right now, 17 drivers running. Currently now 8 of them on the lead lap, as one of the lead lap cars, Kyle Johnson, is making what looks like a regularly scheduled stop.
And that came very early on, considering that Roth has been out for 82 laps. So definitely feels that the tires are now starting to bite him, so he can come out on the racetrack, put down some fast laps. He's actually going to let one of those cars go around. So it's 16 to Guarneri, but there's the difference. You can see just how much faster the 88 is on the fresh rubber, and it's got to be nice coming off of pit road, and all of a sudden now you have the ability to turn. So the 88 definitely going to be on some screamers. He's got to get around some lap traffic at the moment, but as soon as he gets around that, be seeing that 88 to be working his way back up to the field. And when everyone else pits, you're going to see you're going to see him get some more positions. And speaking of that 4 of Roth, he's on pit road now, so I think we know what the limit is now.
Yeah, I think, oh gracious, 71 nearly losing it there. I think he may have spun on the back straightaway, but no caution came out for Todd Seaburn. There is the 4 of James Roth coming to pit road for what would be, I think, only his 2nd pit stop so far in this race, and he made it a long ways. So these drivers, based off of how far he was able to go, they could go another, 25 laps perhaps?
I think he made it to 84, 85 laps. So yeah, you've got quite a bit of play with how much fuel you can run on. But will short pitting work for Kyle Johnson? That's the question. Because if Kyle Johnson can make the short pit work, then it's going to work wonders later in the race. James Roth also pitting a similar strategy. So now he's on with Kyle Johnson.
Oh!
Can go sideways through turn one.
Great save there, as that car was absolutely out from underneath them before he even got to the entry of the corner. And again, those rear tires going away. I think you're going to see this 44 on pit road pretty soon, because I don't know how much longer he can withstand that.
Yeah, he has lost a lot of pace compared to Steinmiller. Steinmiller is now pulling away from the 44, and that right rear is going to be in a lot of bad ways as he's got his rear end stepping out yet again, losing even more time, although I think he made up a little bit of time on that exchange, but I would not be surprised if Blaine Atkins tries to pull it around, and as if he doesn't spin going through turn three, as he was sideways again. He's coming to pit road. No, he missed
nope.
it.
I don't know if he was trying to come to pit road or if that was still the process of saving the race car, but he's got to be coming to pit road very soon, because that thing is absolutely snappy sideways from the entrance of the corner to the center of the corner, and even there you see it wiggling off of turn number 2. We'll see if he's going to dive to pit road here this time. Looks like he is. Oh, is he spinning? Is he pitting? I can't tell. Looks like he is going to come to pit road this time.
Oh, what a good save that was, getting it on a pit road. That car was not at all happy, and he does manage to get on pit road. Driver coming out also is going to be Bo Brady's made a stop. The 0-2 of Jake Houndshell has made a stop as well, and he's now coming back out. But give the good hands award to Blaine Atkins. Goodness gracious, that car in all rights should have been pacing the other direction, given what we saw, but somehow saving that race car.
Now, the good news for Kyle Johnson, there's good news and bad news. Actually, I'll start with the bad news. When he came to pit road, he fell 2 laps down to the leaders. But right now, with those fresh tires, he is running about 4 to 6 tenths of a second faster than the race leader, Hank Steinmiller. And he's been doing that consistently for the last 8 laps or so. So the time that he lost on pit road with coming to pit road early, he is certainly making that back in abundance with the fresh tires, especially with every lap that this 63 decides to stay out.
Yeah, he is slow. And speaking of slow versus fast, look at where the 44 has rejoined the racetrack. Albeit he is a couple laps down now to the 63, but he is going to be a rocket ship. He's going to get one of his laps back for sure. Look at the speed difference from Atkin now that he's got some fresh tires. Steinmiller might be thinking about having to come down pit road sooner rather than later. He does have a pretty big gap back to the 16 Granary, although that gap might not stay the way, especially if Atkin was any indication of how quickly your tires could fall off. We might see the 63 having to struggle with saving his car as well, but now a lot of cars a lap down. If a yellow comes out now, it's going to be detrimental for them. They might take the wave around, though. I think they can do that.
They can indeed, although, if you think about it, right now only 2 drivers are running -1, and taking the wave around would put them back in the lead lap. That being Blaine Atkin, who just got one of his 2 laps back there, getting around the 63, and also the 85 of James Goshen, who is still yet to come to pit road. Saw someone dive to pit road there. I think that might have been Seth Harlson. Oh, no, he's coming off of pit lane. Somebody dove onto pit road there. Oh, it was Jason Houndshell in the 00.
Yeah, running last place on the racetrack right now in 17th. 11 laps down. That car he's just trying to get to the end of this race at this point.
So when does this 63 pit? And the thing is, too, I continue to watch the number of laps that he's putting out there on his tires. I'm going to be very interested to see the number lap that he pits in relation to when the 88 of Kyle Johnson came to pit road, because he came to pit road 13 laps ago. Let's figure in the possibility that Hank Steinmiller is able to make it to roughly 70 laps to go. Was that the last pit stop of the day, potentially, for the 88 if we go green to the end?
I don't know. It all depends on how well he's able to keep his tires healthy. If he's having some struggles like we saw with Atkin, where his car is so snappy that he can't be competitive, then I think that we're going to see this 88 car back on pit road. However, if he's able to conserve his tires and just kind of ride around in cruise mode and at the end of the race have some health left in his tires to really pull some moves on, that might be the last time we see this 80 on a pit road. That might be the last time we see the 44 on pit road. And certainly whenever Steinmiller, Graneri, Whitendorf, Morse, Johnson, Goshen, whenever they come down pit road, that's going to be the last time we see them on pit road as well. So, well, not so much Morse and Johnson's. I think they just made a stop.
They did. They were both on pit road. Last week's winner and the defending champion pitting from the 4th and 5th position. So now we're only waiting on 4 drivers to come down pit road to complete this cycle of pit stops.
And that would be the aforementioned Steinmiller, Graneri, Whitendorf, and Goshen. Goshen finds himself outside the top 10, looking inside the top 10, and now finds himself running in 4th, albeit quite a ways back from the leader. In fact, a whole lap down to the leader. And the leader, Steinmiller, is actually getting reeled in right now. He's gotten reeled in by the 88, who's on fresher tires. He's now going around to try and get back on the lead lap. And now he's back now 1 lap down as opposed to 2. So he's got 1 of his laps back. Graneri is reeling in Steinmiller. So we saw a big gap form earlier in the race with Steinmiller and Atkin kind of checking out from the top 3, 4, or 5 cars behind them. Now we're starting to see that Graneri has been able to conserve his tires a lot better. They're actually starting to reel in Steinmiller, albeit very slowly, but starting to do it, and he's actually taking the lead now. Steinmiller's pitted.
So Steinmiller comes to pit road, closing in on 70 laps to go. He went 75 laps on that stint, so this could potentially be the final time we'll see the 63 on pit lane, barring a potential late race yellow. Graneri now and John Whitendorf, they're going to be the 2 to battle for the race lead, and they're separated by less than a car length.
Yeah, he's trying to get on it, and oh, goodness gracious, they're really close together. They're trying to make this thing work. Oh,
no!
Graneri gets dumped on the back straightaway. That's going to be a caution.
And that's going to shuffle up everything as they were the only 2 drivers left on the lead lap.
That is interesting. How does this play out?
Blaine Atkin's going to get the lucky dog. This much we know. He was the first car 1 lap down. Goshen, Steinmiller, Johnson, Morse, and Johnson were all -1. So if they take the wave around, they would be on the lead lap. So we have the potentiality of 8 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green. But wow, this was for the lead at the time between 2 drivers that were battling on the cusp of having to come to pit road because they were battling on 77-lap-old tires.
You want to talk about grudges that might carry over into races to come. I think that the 33 just flat out ran into the 16. I think Graneri might have gotten off the throttle a little bit, but that might have been to save himself from hitting the outside wall, and I think he just got flat out ran over.
Well, let's not forget that both of these drivers had not led a lap yet today, so obviously that bonus point was on the line for them, and right there, Graneri had actually led that lap, and I think Whitendorf was saying, hey, it's my turn. I want to lead this lap. We'll see here off the corner. Yes, to your point, I think the 16 may have gotten off the throttle a little bit to avoid hitting the outside wall, and Whitendorf wasn't ready for it, but he certainly was right into that left rear quarter panel, and not much space was given.
Not at all. That was, man, hard, like, to the inside wall as well. Man, he was running really well without damage, and now how is that front end damage going to fare for the 16? Because he was trying to stop, but he just had too much momentum, carried him right into the inside wall. It was just a little bit of a tap. It wasn't like he shot into the wall, but that's definitely going to be some aero damage he's going to have to live to work with. And what is the damage on the 33? Do you think that he's got some damage out of that? I would bet he does, but man, this is going to be interesting to see how these two favor each other on the racetrack going forward. Certainly going to be eyeing each other up when they get close to one another.
It definitely has turned this race on its head as we are getting close to entering into the final quarter of this race. Lap 134 just now going on the board, and Graneri is going to stay on the lead lap, it looks like, although he had to spend a little bit of of extra time on pit road, giving that car some TLC. And to answer the question you asked just moments ago about that front end damage sustained by the 16, I mean, if we go back to Jake Hounshell, he ended up running up inside of the top 3, got involved in that incident off of turn 2 onto the back straightaway. And while that car has still been competitive, it is definitely a shell of its former self, speed-wise and competitive-wise. And so I think any kind of front-end damage you get here is certainly going to affect you. I think even more so because, as mentioned, the longer straightaways here, you have to especially use that longer back straightaway to set up a run and set up a pass over in 3 and 4. If your car is not aerodynamically sound on the front end and you're not able to get that toe, you're not going to be able to get that run you need, and thusly passes aren't going to be generated the way you need them to.
Right, and that's going to be a huge effect. It looks like there's going to be quite a few cars that's going to be in between the leaders. I think that they're letting them by, so it's going to say that there's going to be quite a few leaders that are quite a few cars in front of the leaders, but the 33 has actually gone past them all at the moment. As I'm looking at the running order, and our top 2 hasn't changed. In fact, they've only swapped positions. So what do you think? Do you think we see some accidents happening between these two?
Boy, I don't know. I mean, there's still a long ways to go in this race. Right now, they're 2 of 3 drivers that are on the lead lap. The last thing you want to do is cause another caution and add more drivers to your competition, because I thought that there'd be about 5 drivers that could take the wave around. Apparently, there are no wave arounds. And so Kyle Johnson, James Goshen, Hank Steinmiller, Christopher Morse Jr., Cooper Johnson, they're all still going to remain -1. It's Whitendorf, Guarneri, and the lucky dog Blaine Akin, your lone 3 drivers on the lead lap as we get back underway.
And Whitendorf, the one mission for him is to get away from Guarneri as quick as possible. He's gotten a lap car between them, but now Guarneri has made quick work of that. It's all about how fast that 16 can run down the 33. Atkin, that strategy worked out beautifully for him. He's got some lap traffic he's got to get around, so now he is competing for that the top 3. He's in the top 3. He's trying to get back up so he can get to the top 2, maybe challenge for the lead of the race. Someone that did not benefit is going to be Hank Steinmiller and Kyle Johnson. That could not have come out at a worse time for them, as they're both going to be a lap down. But Johnson, we were wondering what that kind of run or pitting early, what that would do for the 88. He came out in front of Steinmiller and the lot that stayed out. So obviously worked out wonders for him, as he did come down pit road with these other drivers, was able, because he had the overall speed late in the race, he was able to get back and now finds himself in 4th place, albeit a lap down, trying to get one of his laps back, trying to stay in front of Steinmiller, right behind him, to get that lucky dog should we have another yellow flag come out, which might happen sooner than later if Whitendorf and Guarneri have a bit of a battle going on.
I mean, right here, those 3 cars in the shot, the 88, the 63, and the 3, they're all battling for the free pass position. First car 1 lap down, so this could turn into just as important a battle as the brewing battle for the race lead. What was 7/10 of a second between Whitendorf and Anthony Guarneri has now been cut down to 3/10, and Guarneri is closing quickly, running a little bit higher there through 1 and 2, trying to translate that to straightaway speed. Look out for that back bumper of the Skoll Chevrolet, because he's going to have a 16 car possibly beaten on it in the next couple of laps.
We were talking about that front end damage, how it would affect him. It doesn't seem like at all. The 16 very fast down the straights, and it looks like he's got more downforce through the turns, able to really hug it to the inside line and get the runs out of the turns that he needs to. He's got a little bit of help because of the draft coming off of 33, so a little bit of help will go a long way, especially if you have...
Caution is out. It's Todd Seaburn, apparently in the 71, has gone around and is actually flipping.
He's on his side right now. That was big. He's actually, he's flipped back on his wheel, so that's lucky for him. He doesn't have to call a tow truck.
6 laps down in the 14th position, and Kyle Johnson looking up to the heavens saying thank you, as he'll be the recipient of the lucky dog under this caution. Let's go back and see what happened over in turn 3 to the 71 car.
You're gonna have to back up quite a bit. It's actually on the back straightaway. The 71 went for one heck of a ride, and you're gonna see it in just a moment. But man, he went for one heck of a ride.
Looks like he may have gotten loose there off of turn 2, made some contact with the 20 of Bo Brady. Brady was able to continue on. 71 not so lucky, and yeah, that is a wild ride for sure. And Those drivers heading down the back straightaway, scattering, trying to figure out which way the 71 car was going to tumble.
Yeah, and then he does a big pirouette into turn 3, but does land on his side, which then translates it back onto his wheels. So good luck for him. He didn't have to call a tow truck, and man, that car slid for so long. I'm surprised that his car got any air anyways. You know, he hit that wall just right to get that front wheel up on it, and then just over he went and tumbling down the back straightaway. And one of the crazier wrecks we've seen so far the first 2 weeks.
I gotta love too, as we're riding on board with this tumbling 71, the hands never stop moving. Upside down on his roof, he is still driving that race car.
trying to get the air to go the right way he wants to. He knows if he can correct it. He tried to. Yeah, his hands just all over the place, trying to see anything that he could have done, but I don't think there was anything you could have done.
Kyle Johnson is currently going to be scored the leader, but I think he's actually going to be dropping to the back since he would have been the lucky dog driver. It would turn the race lead over here to John Whitendorf, who is going around the outside. Anthony Guarneri, Blaine Atkin, and Kyle Johnson will be the 4 on the lead lap. We do have 14 in the 85 that have stayed out, but again, I don't think there are any waiver rounds, so they will not get a free pass here when we eventually go back green. Closing in on 50 laps to go. So far, we have ended up having 6 cautions that have so far taken out 5 drivers. 17 remain. Currently, 4 of them on the lead lap. And you just kind of get the feeling, too, that some of these drivers that are still a lap down cannot lose hope, because I think we're going to see a couple more late race yellows getting those drivers back on the lead lap and back into the hunt for this victory.
Especially if you're anyone named Morse, Roth, or Houndshell. You had a fast car, and now you're just trying to hope that you can get a lucky break. And I think that Morse, if he's running in the position he is now, he might be able to get something back going and find it in his favor. He can get on the lead lap. He's next car in line to do that. I'm sorry, make that James Scotian is the next car to do that. So he's got a little bit of a way to go before he can get up there. He's got to get around Steinmiller and Gosha. Actually, he's got to get around just Steinmiller now, as everyone's. So actually, Cooper Johnson is now going to be the one that he's going to have to get around. So a lot of shuffling happening while we're still lining him up for the restart. But yeah, it's going to be. Never give up. You never know what's going to happen. We saw at Daytona, all the leaders crash, and then it was a guy that we had written out completely that won the race. So, luck can find your way. And speaking of the guy that won, Cooper Johnson, still running in 7th. He's 3rd on the line for lap down traffic. So if he can get up to a lucky dog spot, get into the fight for the lead, then he might possibly go for 2 wins in 2 races.
Yeah, even though it's a lap down, still a great job following up that Daytona win for Cooper Johnson, right now in the 7th position. If we look at the positioning of our race leader here, John Whitendorf finishing 4th last week at Daytona, and only 15 points out of the points lead coming into tonight's race. A former winner from the inaugural season of the G-Force Vintage Clothing 87 Cup Series. So definitely would love to get that number 33 Harry Gant throwback machine in victory lane once again. Well, it actually could be Ken Schrader as well. Not sure which of the Skull drivers is a throwback to, but right now, I mean, it's interesting too, because if you think about it, we were talking about how he didn't really look like he had the pace to win this race back in the beginning stages of this race. Almost kind of makes me wonder if he was playing possum, not really showing us or the rest of his competition how fast a car he had. And now that circumstances have worked into his favor, now we're really going to get to see what this car is like at 110%.
Yeah, and that might, again, be strategy on his part, just kind of laying in the wakes, seeing if what his other competitors around him can do, and then judging what he can do based off of that. We'll have to see. Green flag back out in the air. Blaine Atkin gave a shot to Guarneri. Guarneri's having none of it. Goes all the way down to the inside of the racetrack to block the 44. Now here comes Atkin trying to figure out a way. Bring in Steinmiller. He wants to get one of his laps back as he's rocketing down the back straightaway with these 3 leaders.
Boy, as the 16 and the 44 were concentrated on who could go the shallowest into the corner, John Whitendorf took the lane he wanted and is pulling away. Now it's side by side again for second place. Akin has the advantage. He's clear before they even get to the center of turn 2.
Whoa, and bring in Steinmiller and Morse to the inside, trying to get back up there to get their lap back. Man, that Guarneri lost a lot of time to those 3 cars. He's fallen a long ways back. I thought he was going to wash up the racetrack for sure, but he's gotten it going back the right direction. Whitendorf trying to check out, but don't look now, that 44, super fast. We've seen him so quick earlier in the race. We're seeing that same speed now, but remember, that speed, that outright pace that he had, cost him some time getting on the pit road. So we'll have to see if those tires can hold up like they did earlier. A lot less of a distance that they have to go now, and he just came down pit road. So it might be okay, but to the lead, or looking to the lead, goes the 44 and the 33.
And the 63 and the 3, we know, have race-winning pace. They've showed it here in the first half of this event. They are going to try as best they can to get around Blaine Akin and get their lap back the hard way. They don't want to have to rely on a free pass to come out, because if you think about it here for Christopher Morris, right now, he's the man outside of the free pass position. If a caution were to come out, he can't take a wave around. So he's basically the guy that has to work past the 44, get his lap back the hard way, and then hope a caution comes out.
Did you see how aggressive Steinmiller was going down the front straightaway to block the advance of Morse? Steinmiller knows that he's in the free pass spot, so he's good. If he can hold this spot, then there's no worries for him. But like you said, Morse definitely sensed the urgency growing as he needs to find a way around the 63 first, then figure out how to get around the 44 to make sure that he's doubly sure that he's on the lead lap. Now, if Steinmiller forces the issue on Atkins, which he's going to do now, this whole dynamic changes, because now Morse is going to be okay, and look at how far up the racetrack that Akin got washed up. Now both of them are good. They're both on the lead lap.
Yeah, but I think that Blaine Akin might have actually kind of preserved himself there, realizing what these two were racing for. I think he moved up out of the way because it was a bit of a gap from himself back to second place John Whitendorf. So he figured, I'll let these guys go by, manage my gap between myself and the 33, because right now, that's the guy I'm battling for this race lead. Actually, that might change hands, because Guarneri has gotten back to the 33 of Whitendorf.
Yeah, and let's not forget what happened earlier on the race. I don't think Guarneri's quite forgotten about it, so I wonder how eager he is going to be to pass the 33 and get back in front. He was leading at the time, so he knows what it's like to get to the front. And Akin, we saw some pace out of him early, has actually slowed it down a little bit. Whitendorf's reeled him in, making a 3-way fight for the lead and a 2-way fight for 5th place up in front of them.
When we talked to Blaine Akin last season, and also when we talked to him at Daytona last week, he said that the thing he is focusing on the most this year is tire conservation. Really was abusive to those good years back in season 1, and it cost him a number of victories, trying to pace himself, trying to rein in the aggressiveness that we love to see him exhibit on restarts, but just trying to make sure he paces himself so that way he's around with at least somewhat decent tires and decent grip underneath him in the closing stages. But I'll tell you what, because of that battle now between Steinmiller and Morse, which by the way is for the 5th position, it's really wadding up the top 3 behind them.
Indeed it is, and I think that Atkins got more pace than the 2 in front. He's just got nowhere to take it. He's got to get around 2 cars that definitely don't want to go back a lap down. What they need right now is a caution. They need something to get them back to the tail end of the lead lap, or they're on the tail end of the lead lap. They need something to get them back to the tail end of the pack, because right now they've got similar pace to our leaders, and that's good for them because they can, they're on similar pace, so they can definitely hold their own. But it's bad because you can't outright check out from the leaders. It's not like when you have a long run and if you've pit and you're trying to get a lap back, you've got the tire advantage. Everyone's on the level playing field right now, and it's definitely showing. Although everyone except for Kyle Johnson, we haven't mentioned Kyle Johnson. He is on the lead lap. He's running 4th place in all of this, and he's on a slightly different tire strategy than everybody else. He's running 24 lap old tires. Everyone else is running 15 and 14 lap old tires. So, he stayed out. He's on the lead lap. He's trying to stay in front of the O2 of Houndshell. He's off the pace, but still within the fight. So, can't forget about Kyle Johnson back here.
Honestly surprised that Kyle Johnson didn't take the opportunity as the battle's on for the lead here with Whitendorf and Atkin, but he was the lucky dog driver under that last caution was Johnson, so he was going to start at the back of the pack behind the lead and lap down cars anyway, so why not come down and take on those fresh Goodyears rather than being out there at about 8 laps difference, 8 lap older tires, than the other 3 drivers that are on the lead lap right now. Kind of interesting strategy there. I almost wonder if either one, he may have used up a couple more sets than we realized under the first 150 laps of this race, or could he possibly be saving an extra set or 2 for later on in this race if we do end up having a late race caution with, say, 20 or less laps to go?
Everyone right now, as I'm looking at it, have only used 4 sets of tires if they use fresh tires every time. And we know at the Rock, that's definitely going to be the case. You're going to want to do that. So 4 sets have already gone for most of these drivers, although someone, or make that a few someones, have already used up their sets. That being the 20 of Brady, the 07 of Harrelson, and the 23 of David White. They've been on pit road 7 times. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have used all of their tires, but that does mean that they're going to statistically going to be in a worse shape than everybody else if they have used more than, or if they have used all of their sets. I think a couple of those might have been only fuel. Also, 2-tire strategies would also work. Do you opt to take a 2-tire strategy, get your right sides clean, and have an extra set that you could throw on the right sides if you wanted to?
I mean, that certainly would work, I would think. I'm not certain how much of a comfort feeling you're going to have going into 1 and 2 with grip on one side of the race car and none on the other, but that could be something these drivers could possibly gamble on. But I honestly think that you want to at least save 1 set, 1 4-tire set for the end of this race. I think that pretty much you have to out of necessity, because I think that's the strategy that everybody's going to have if we get a late race yellow. You saw right there the pass for the 10th position, Jake Hounshell, who was trying to go for the Rockingham sweep. He was the fastest in practice. He was the fastest in qualifying, started on point, was trying to win this race, but after getting involved in a wreck back in the first half of today's event, he now finds himself 3 laps down, currently just inside of the top 10.
Yeah, trying to salvage whatever he can out of a day he's had. That car's got some pretty severe front and rear end damage on the O2. Just trying to hold it as much as he can. Oh, the 4 has spun around. That's James Roth in the back straightaway. No yellow, but I think that it's a similar thing that happened earlier. Is coming out of 2, might have just looped it around. I didn't think he hit anything, but he's gotten back going the right direction.
And as he recovers on the back straightaway, the battle for the lead, it has now been exchanged. Blaine Atkin has gone back around the 33 of John Whitendorf. And so a lot of stuff happening here as we close in on 35 laps to go. Roth in the 4 was running in the 9th position, still sits there, only car 2 laps down. And how about a shout out as well to the driver of the 85, James Goshen, who is a rookie this season in the 87 series. 8th position he currently runs, 1 lap down, but a solid outing for this driver, a guy that didn't even, I believe, take part in last week's race at Daytona.
No, and he's definitely doing a good showing right now. You know, like you said, 8th place. He is within striking distance. Right now, Cooper Johnson, if a caution were to come out, would get the lucky dog, so put him back on the lead lap, and then that would put James Goshen right in that spot again. Now, he's got a long way to go if he wants to run down Johnson to take that position away, about a half a lap, make that about a little bit more than half a lap, really. But still, Goshen, first start, still doing well. He's got damage on that car, but considering that he's probably not very used to these 87 cars in this series at least, doing pretty well for himself.
Oh, things are getting hairy on the back stretch up in the lead part of the group as it was contact right there between Steinmiller and Atkin. They're trying to make their way around Jason Hounshell. You've got right now a driver on the tail end of the lead lap, a driver first car 1 lap down, and your top 2 battling for the race lead, all separated by less than 6 car lengths.
Now this is some good classic racing. If you missed this, then this is what you've been wanting. Seeing a mix of cars on and off the lead lap, but very much up to pace. We wouldn't really normally see this if we were using the new rulebook package, but using the throwback rules, the 87 rules, this is This is racing we haven't seen since the changing of the rules, and it's really throwing a wrench into these leaders' plans. It's throwing a wrench into these lap cars' hands. As now Morse falls a lap down, so he's in the lucky dog spot, and that's moved Cooper Johnson out of the lucky dog spot. So it's amazing how quickly your race dynamic changes.
And more traffic to deal with. James Roth in the 4, Seaburn in the 71. There's another car up there as well that these drivers are going to have to deal with as they snake their way through traffic. Looks like Bo Brady will not make it to the finish. He brought the 20 car to pit road a couple of laps ago. He will finish, it looks like, possibly in the 17th position here today, as Blaine Atkin and Christopher Morris, these two are not battling for the race lead. Right now, Christopher Morris is trying to get his lap back. It's actually John Whitendorf who's trying to reel in the 44, but he's lost touch and is battling actually with some traffic.
Yeah, trying to get around Seaburn. He almost had Steinmiller run into the back of him. Whoa, Seaburn tracks up the track and almost gets into Steinmiller, but does stay off of him, does the 71. So hard battling throughout the racetrack. They do get around the lap traffic, which is something that, yeah, you have to give a testament to these drivers. They saw what they had to do and they got it done. It looked really dicey a couple times, but they did, in fact, get the job done. They got another car up in front, though. That's going to be the 22 of Bruce Pearson, who is also making his first start. So they got to get around him as well. And welcome to the 87 Series, Pearson. Here comes the leaders.
And where do you go? Which lane do the leaders want? Coming down to the technical turn 1. Pearson right now trying to figure out which lane he's going to take. He takes the middle line. Atkin drives it deep, tries to rotate it through the center. He will be able to drive it to the inside of the 22 going down the back straightaway, and that might have been the steadiest we've seen the 44 all race long in making a pass on a slower car off the second corner.
Yeah, he had a lot. Oh, goodness. I was going to say something, and then Morse almost smacked the outside wall. We've seen these drivers. They have gotten in that stage of the race again where the tires are starting to fall off. Do we see mistakes by these drivers? A lot of them have remained pretty much mistake-free, but we just saw almost a really big one from the 3 machine.
I'll tell you where I am focused on right now, and that is the back end of the 44, because remember, prior to him coming to pit road, he nearly spun out, 5, 6, 7 times. I'm watching to see if that rear end grip, if it's still there, if it's starting to go away, because you talk about drivers' mistakes. The longer this run goes on, if Blaine Atkin has not been able to preserve these tires, he's going to run into the same situation, and John Whitendorf is right there within striking distance of Pounds. Remember, Whitendorf was one of 2 drivers that went the furthest when we had that lengthy green flag run.
Yeah, and he knows how to extend his tires' life to beyond what we even think is possible, and he might be laying in the wakes and saying, all right, I'll back off a little bit. I remember what happened to Atkin earlier in the race, and I'm going to use it to my advantage. If he can make that work, then we might be seeing him take the lead later on in the race, and how would that be for him, knowing that he doesn't really have to be the fastest, but knowing that he does have the overall pace on the long run. And I got to think that Atkins got that in the back of his head. Like, yeah, I had problems before anyone else did that was on a similar strategy. So I got to conserve my stuff, but I can't go slow because you've got the 33 breathing down his neck, or about to breathe down his neck. So as soon as he gets around Morse, you got Morse trying to get back on the lead lap. I think that Steinmiller's dropped like a rock. I don't know what happened to the 63, but he's fallen way off.
Yeah, his pace has definitely fallen off as he's lost touch with this top trio now. First and second place, bookending the first car 1 lap down of Chris Morse Jr. There's actually more traffic to deal with up ahead. And, for Blaine Atkin and John Whitendorf, not only are they racing for their first win of the season, but either one that goes to victory lane here tonight would be taking the points lead into next week. Blaine Atkin came in second in points and John Whitendorf 4th in the standings after last week at Daytona. And speaking of next week, we're going to be flying the green flag at pretty much a place you're familiar with, Anthony. Hometown for you. We're going to Richmond next week, so we're definitely going under the light short track racing there.
Oh yeah, and it's one of the best short tracks in the world, and I'm not completely biased, but maybe a little bit. But yeah, hometown track, it's nice to be able to just walk out and not have to drive so far to get to the racetrack. And I'm excited to see what these cars can do at Richmond. It's a really weird short track. It's not, it's not quite a mile. It's not quite a half mile. It's just kind of somewhere sitting in between there. And you can get 3 and 4 wide racing there if you're careful. But with these cars, I don't know if that's going to be possible.
Oh, caution is out. It's James Roth in the 4 on the back straightaway. This time it was up on the racing surface, so race officials no choice but to throw the caution with less than 20 to go.
And if you're Morse, we'll make that if you're Steinmiller, that's bad news because Morse gets the free pass. And if Morse had gotten around Atkin, Steinmiller, that is a huge loss on that part.
Like the outside wall has claimed another victim. Well, actually the 4 was out of shape through the center of 1 and 2. And then hard into the outside wall off of the second corner. And there you see the wall just didn't want to let him go. It's kind of like it sucked him in. He couldn't turn left and get off of it. Spins it around with oncoming traffic. And so the caution comes out here. And to your point, now we're going to have 5 drivers on the lead lap when we get back under the green flag, which will be more than likely around the 15 lap to go vicinity, maybe even less than that.
Yeah, and that's going to put a lot of these drivers on fresh rubber, and that is going to be crucial for them as the leaders have come down to get fresh tires. Guarneri's on, Atkin is on, Whitendorf is on, Kyle Johnson is on, so now he's going to be right back up with these leaders. And now you got the addition of the 3 of Christopher Morse, which was no doubtedly going to take some tires. And think about this for a second. We were talking about how Cooper Johnson missed the start of the race. Well, Morse didn't even qualify. He didn't have a qualifying lap put down, so he had to start at the back. And he's made his way and now runs in the top 5. He's actually in the lead right now. He hasn't pitted yet, but he's taking the lucky dog. Now he's going to pit with the lap down cars. And, we might be saying the 3's in victory lane. He's got pace. I don't know if anyone's going to be able to take it to Atkin, especially if he has fresh tires.
It's interesting, too, because we've kind of seen the revision, if you will, of Christopher Morse Jr. If you go back to last season, the first season of the G-Force Vintage Cup Series, it was him out there qualifying in the top 5 every week, running up at the front. As we got closer to the end of the season, there were a couple of races, I believe, that he actually stepped out of the car and went into an off-track admin role. When he would step into the car near the end of the season, he would start towards the rear of the field. And we saw this carry over as well when we covered the Grand National Series prior to this second year. So it seems like he's kind of adapted that. And in all honesty, I think it's helped him in a way because it's given him an edge up on the rest of his competition of knowing just how fast his car is and how good it handles in traffic. Then when he finally gets up to the front, he's already done his homework and knowing where he can put his race car to be able to make moves on drivers that might be on an equal speed with him. They've been out there in clean air and not really been able to get all that experience.
And that valuable seat time is what sets him apart from a lot of the other drivers. To your point, Seth, having to go through all those slower traffic, figure out where to put your car, you're already that much further up than someone in front of you. Now you times that by however many races you have in a season, and you've basically figured out how to make passes on every part of the racetrack at every racetrack you race on. And he's got some of the most seat time in this particular car than anyone else. So if anyone can do it, it's going to be Morse. And I think that he's got something for these 4 in front of him tonight. Now, that's barring if he can get up to there, because I think he has to start with a lot of cars between him and the leaders. But still, if he can get up there, we'll be seeing this 3-car battle for it.
We'll have to start at the end of the field. You are correct, between the lead lap and lap down cars. It looks like another driver is starting back there as well, Blaine Atkin in the 44. I think maybe he might have gotten hit with a speeding penalty on pit road, perhaps. So it is going to be John Whitendorf, Anthony Guarneri, and Kyle Johnson nose to tail to bring us back to the green. And again, you keep talking about this, the contact we saw for the lead between the 33 and the 16. With 15 laps to go, have we seen the last of that issue?
If Whitendorf's reaction to getting away from the 16 says anything, then I think he remembers it as well, and he's trying to get as far away as he can. He got a whale of a restart, and we're coming down to crunch time. These drivers, 15 laps left. They know that if they got to do anything to get an advantage, they got to do it now. He's pulled out a pretty big gap to the 16 and the 88. Now Johnson is kind of run down Granary. We had almost completely written off Kyle Johnson, but he's still in the fight. He's coming, trying to get a second place as he's pulling in Granary.
Kyle Johnson looking for complete opposite ends of the spectrum in the last 2 weeks. Dead last at Daytona last weekend, and now trying to see if he can finish P1. He's got 0.8 of a second between himself and the race leader, less than a car length between himself and Anthony Guarneri for the second position.
He's reeling them in too. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to move somewhere close in the next couple of laps, but he is right there. He's got Steinmiller coming with him. He's trying to get a lap back. He's the first car on the or a lap down, trying to get back behind these guys. He's going to play a little bit of a pick role in these leaders, trying to see if he can maybe disrupt them and get on the lead lap the hard way. But so far, Whitendorf been able to pull away. A little bit of a bobble from Kyle Johnson coming out of 2. I don't know if the arrow got sucked around, but these top 3 still scurrying away.
Yeah, I wonder maybe that 63 getting right up to his back bumper might be taking the air off that spoiler, getting him a little bit loose. As you see again, losing ground to the 16, and caution is out. Todd Seaburn in the 71 looping it around near the end of the back straightaway. So another caution comes out. Another driver gets added to the lead lap list in Hank Steinmiller, and this restart's going to come with less than 10 laps to go.
So this is crucial because if we get another caution in quick succession, this race might be over. So these drivers, it's staying out now. You're not coming down pit road. There's no way that you're going to come down pit road at this stage in the race. Unless someone behind you has an idea, that I don't think that's on the table.
Todd Seaburn getting loose off of turn 2. That was the 07 of Seth Harrelson that he got into. And while it looked like for a brief moment he actually was going to keep the thing straight, was riding the outside wall. The wall grabbed that right front tire, snapped his car around, and thusly puts us under the caution for the 8th time here tonight at Rockingham. And little bit surprised that we didn't have drivers come down pit road if they did have an extra set of tires available to them, because, you know, we do have some drivers pitting. So there you go. John Whitendorf, Anthony Guarneri, and Christopher Morse Jr. all coming down pit lane this time.
And someone that stayed out is Kyle Johnson and Blaine Atkins. So they think that they've got the pace to make it with the stuff that they've got. Now, this is going to be a disadvantage for Whitendorf and the lot, because now they're going to have to start behind some lap down traffic unless they come down pit road and get caught, or they get caught behind these guys. So that, I don't know if you would have done that under normal circumstances, but we're going to have to see what they can do. This is good news for Kyle Johnson, because he finds himself being 4th place, or actually finds himself being a lap down about halfway through the race. Then 4th place, but down quite a bit to the leaders. Now finds himself leading the race. So that 88 might have something for the end of this one.
Well, that's the good news. The bad news is you've got the defending winner of this race and maybe one of the fastest cars on the track this entire event right on your back bumper. And Blaine Atkin is no slouch when it comes to restarts as well. He is going to be on the back bumper of that 88 when the flagman waves the green.
Absolutely. That's going to be crucial. If Kyle Johnson can get a good restart, I think that he might be able to pull something away and might be able to play defense just ever so slightly. We're mentioning those drivers that pitted earlier. They are coming up through the field. I think they are going to start in front of all of these lap cars, as they're coming around the outside line. So there's going to be quite a few machines gunning for this win, and make that a total of 6, although Steinmiller had to pit, so he's going to start behind these guys, being the wave-around cars. But these guys that are kind of falling back to the back, it's within 10 laps to go, so the leaders will start in front. So, Seth, what do you think? What do you think we're going to see in these last few laps? We're going to get the green flag. Not this time by, I don't think. I think we're going to get the green flag with 6 to go. Do they get the full distance in under green is my question.
Here's the thing we don't know. If we go back to the beginning of the race, we had drivers that stayed out and drivers that were behind them on fresh tires. But those were 17 to 20 lap differences between the tires. Then we had that long green flag run, so we really don't have any clear idea of what the speed difference is with the tires we have here. First and second place have about 9 lap older tires from third back through fifth. We know that Kyle Johnson's got a fast car. We know that Blaine Akin has a fast car. But does that 9 laps translate into a 2-3 tenths of a second difference in speed? I don't really know. We've not really been able to have a template early on in this event to be able to go off of. So it's kind of a question mark for us. And I almost wonder if it's a question mark for these drivers as well, because how much testing of this type of a scenario did they have in practice or when they were testing the setup earlier on this week? This is a gamble. There's no doubt about it for Kyle Johnson, Blaine Akin. But if it works with how few laps we've got left, it could be a gamble that definitely pays off.
And then I need to, what's the word I'm looking for? I need to, well, I don't know why the word slipped my mind, but to go on what I said, we do have one green-white checkered attempt that these drivers do also have to think about. Green flag is back out in the air, correct. I was trying to correct myself. Don't know why I couldn't think of that, but nonetheless, we're back under green. And like you said, Blaine Akin able to stick right with Kyle Johnson. Johnson, though, a little bit of a gap being pulled, about 2-3 car lengths now. Does the 44 get into the turns better, or does Whitendorf with the fresh tires have something to say?
There's the answer. Blaine Akin has been really good through 3 and 4 all race long, but he was a puppet right there to the 33, and he drives it in deep on the 88, going into turn 1. We may not be done with cautions yet, folks. They are beating and banging on the back bumpers through these corners.
The 5 cars in your shot are the top 5 battling for the race lead. Kyle Johnson trying to defend against 4 very hungry drivers. Akin all over the rear end of the 88 now to the inside, down the back straight, or the front straightaway make it. Does he use the apron? He thought about it. He gets turned. The 88 goes up into the wall. No caution. Now a caution flag flies.
Caution's gonna come out as Kyle Johnson, the block into turn 1 did not work. Blaine Akin was able to save his race car, but not before losing the race lead to John Whitendorf, or actually correction, I think actually Akin was ahead at the timing of the yellow, so a great save by him. And I gotta tell you what, I had flashbacks to last season. I'm trying to remember which track it was. I want to say that it was Chicagoland or one of those 1.5-mile tracks when Kyle Johnson threw a block for the race lead. It didn't pan out then. It didn't pan out here either, as he's now going to lose a ton of track position, and not really certain with that camera angle just how much damage he may have sustained going up into the outside wall.
He certainly sustained a lot of rear end damage, I would think. It was more or less a tap, but he did get caught on it after the fact. So, gee, I don't know. It was a hard hit. No matter how you look at it, that car is not going to be at 100%. He's definitely going to have to come down and get tires. Hopefully he's got a set he can use. Man, it was a good block attempt. We'll give him that. But Blaine Akin just with a head of steam barreling into turn 1, and man, that could have easily taken up the top 5 if that had come back down the racetrack. Good on everyone behind them to be aware and get on the brakes.
First corner at Rockingham reminds me a lot of Dover. As, you get those high banks up there from the middle to the high groove, but it's a rather low banked area down at the inside line. And so you throw your car in there and it's not necessarily going to stick. Both those drivers, Kyle Johnson and Blaine Akin, were going to go super shallow into turn 1. And did we have, I'm noticing that the 88, yeah, we did. We had a little bit of extracurricular activity here on the back straightaway. I noticed the 88 was up in the vicinity of the 44, and take a look at this. Not sure what this was about, if this was a, hey, no harm, no foul, or if this was a, hey, just remember I might get back to you before this race is over.
That's definitely a, I'm watching you for the rest of the race and for later in the season. We were talking about the battle between Whitendorf and Granary. Well, Kyle Johnson and Blaine Akin, that might be something that we have to watch through the rest of the season as well. So Kyle Johnson's going to pit now, and now we've got ourselves, I think, 7 cars on the lead lap, as Cooper Johnson is now going to be the latest recipient of the free pass. He's going to get back on the lead lap in 7th place still, but we got one attempt at a green-white checkered. Do you think that these guys behind, now seeing what Atkin did, are going to try a similar move and see if they can force the 44 into an error. Certainly, I think Weitendorf, if he gets a good restart, could be right there. Christopher Morse, depending if he can get around Weitendorf, that's the biggest thing is, can they even catch Atkin? We've seen the restarts he can get. Is that 44 just going to get away and get this win?
Well, I think that he definitely is going to be able to catch these guys off guard. He's been really a master of restarts, not only in this series, but we saw him also in the Grand National Series, really able to be strong on restarts, whether he's the leader or whether he's back in the 10th position. John Weitendorf's going to do everything he can to keep the 44 within striking distance, but I really think that if you look at second place on back, these drivers now have a mentality of the risk-reward. The risk is you're going to finish 7th. Well, that doesn't sound so bad. You know, last car on the lead lap, and you still fish inside the top 10. The reward is you go to victory lane. So I think we might be in for one of the more aggressive restarts we've seen between here and last week at Daytona, because they know that this is the only green-white checkered attempt they're going to have. If they wreck trying to win this race, the furthest down they can finish is in the 7th position. So I think if you're in a spot, you got to go for it.
Indeed so, and you know, we might have something that we saw at Daytona happen yet again, where a lot of the leaders wreck, and I might look back and see Cooper Johnson sneaking through again.
He's there, isn't he? Yeah, it could happen. Lightning could strike twice. He's in the spot of 7th place right now. Wait and see what happens. It's a green-white checkered 2-lap shootout to finish it out here tonight at Rockingham Speedway. Blaine Atkin receives the green flag. Question is, are we racing to the caution or are we racing to the checker?
Look at the jump that Atkin got. He's got himself about a 3-car length, making a 4-car length gap back to Weitendorf. Weitendorf trying to catch up. Morse is right there as well. Does Atkin have the pace going through turn 3 and 4? Here comes Weitendorf. He's got something to say for this one. Coming out of 4. 1 lap to go at the stripe.
Hank Steinmiller nearly losing it over there in 3 and 4 as Weitendorf receives the white flag. Weitendorf, half a car length, runs a little higher up the track there. Here comes Morse and Guarneri in case something goes wrong. Weitendorf gets loose off of 2. That could be it.
And that will seal the deal as Guarneri almost gets into Morse, but Morse with a whale of a run through turn 3 and 4. Can he carry this momentum? I don't know if he can. Not enough time. Atkin will get the win at the Rock, holding off everyone.
Morse Jr. second, and Ticker gives third to John Weitendorf as he and Guarneri were in a drag race back to the start-finish line. And for the second season in a row, Blaine Atkin is going to get to burn it down at the Rock.
Man, that restart is, you got to give every credit he had to,
Oh boy.
Well, we were thinking about it, and I think we just got confirmation. Kyle Johnson is going to remember that for a long time.
Well, it may not be the prettiest looking car now, but it's still going to get to sit in victory lane, but not before heading down here in front of these North Carolina fans and burning it down at one of the more historic racetracks on the NASCAR circuit.
This is undoubtedly a victory in and of itself to get through this race after being a lap down and getting back on the position where you could get it. He's doing a Polish lap around for our fans here in North Carolina, but to get a win on a historic track in an historic car, it's got to be a good feeling. To do it 2 years in a row. He won last time, gets it done again. He's definitely figured out how to get this track figured out.
Let's take a look at the finishing results from today's race. Not only does Blaine Atkin pick up the win here tonight, but he'll take the points lead into Richmond next week, which, oh, by the way, he won at that track in the Grand National Series last year. So definitely going to have a lot of confidence going into that one. Christopher Morse Jr., the defending champ, brings it home in second place. John Weitendorf in third. Anthony Guarneri, Kyle Johnson, Cooper Johnson, and Hank Steinmiller going to be the drivers that will finish on the lead lap. And when you consider the fact of the timing of that yellow we had in the middle of green flag pit stops, the 44, the 3, the 88, and the 63, as well as the 14, all had to get free passes to be in the hunt for this win.
Yeah, it was definitely a battle of attrition to get back into that position, and that caution that put everybody a lap down could not have come at a worse time for pretty much everybody third on down. So to even have 7 cars finish on the lead lap, that alone is amazing considering what had happened. And I gotta say, something that also has struck me is that turn 2 has been the worst for a lot of these drivers. So it's fantastic that a lot of them were able to figure that one out. And a lot of these leaders were able to figure it out and still be in the position they can. And Cooper Johnson, a 6th place, considering how his race started, that's incredible.
Definitely looking to be the early favorite for Rookie of the Season, but Anthony Guarneri there in the 16 also is battling for Rookie of the Year. So maybe those two, the 14 and the 16, that will be duking it out. You've also got the 85 of James Goshen. He's going to finish 8th place tonight. Another of the rookies, Jake Hounshell, who started on pole, will finish 9th, and James Roth is able to salvage a top 10 as we take a look here at the rest of the finishing results. And while you've got those drivers that really enjoyed Rockingham tonight, you go further down and you've got guys like Bo Brady, who had a tire strategy that went horribly wrong, and the night just ended with him in the garage area in 17th. Peyton Hamlet, Randy Coking, Shane Lake all in the garage area. And then obviously the tough break here tonight as well for Blake Ripley and Gerald Campbell, as they weren't even able to make it past the first 20 laps of this race due to us having a mass connection problem for quite a number of the drivers, and they never returned back into the server.
Yeah, that really took out a lot of wind out of their sails. Jared Campbell especially, he was leading the race when that happened, so finishing dead last out of all 22 runners. Though he got to keep his head high, he's got a fast car, and we've seen him do a lot of good things throughout these races. So last season was a threat for a lot of these drivers for the championship. We'll have to see what he can do the rest of the season. Only race 2, so plenty of time to rebound. Wouldn't worry too much about it, but people like Blake Ripley, who really needs to put a good run together this season. I don't know if he has what it takes to maybe be up in the top 3 drivers, but he's certainly got a fast machine. So if he can put some good runs together, we could see Blake Ripley pull something out of it.
And going back to Gerald Campbell as well, came into the first season midway through the year, caught fire, went to victory lane a number of times. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to battle for the championship since he was so far down in points after the lack of starts in the first half. However, they extended the schedule for season 2, so a lot more races to be able to work with to mount a comeback as well for the driver of the 31. He'll begin that road to recovery next week at Richmond, but let's see if we can talk with some of our top 3 finishers here tonight from Rockingham. Like, we're going to see if we can get our 3rd place finisher. I don't think he's available just yet, so we'll wait on Whitendorf. Instead, we'll talk with our 2nd place finisher, a driver that started shotgun on the field. That's Christopher Morse Jr. Hey Chris, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I got you.
Wow, I mean, what a race for you here today. A little bit of ups, a little bit of downs, but end the night on a high note there in the 2nd position. But one thing that Anthony and I were talking about was the fact that we ended up seeing you do this near the end of last season here for the 87 series. We saw you do it during the Grand National Series, and now you're doing it here again for the 2nd year of the 87 Cup Series, starting at the back. Does that give you any kind of an advantage to size up your competition, just knowing how good your car is in traffic early on in this race, and allow you to apply where you know your car is best on late race restarts like this?
Yeah, I think starting at the rear, it just, like you said, it gives me an opportunity to race majority of the pack at some point. And when we get towards the end, I know who's got what and kind of where I can pass them, where I can't pass them. And yeah, that's pretty much just it with that. The other part of it was, towards the end of the ARCA series, we were kind of having a lot of wrecks, and I was trying to keep an eye on seeing who was doing what and trying to admin and race at the same time. So I had a couple reasons for it. But yeah, that's a big benefit from doing it.
Now, that mid-race caution really shook up the field, and it put a lot of drivers a lap down. At that point, it was a battle to get back on the lead lap, and you were in a pretty big battle with Hank Steinmiller quite a bit, trying to get to even have a shot to get back on the lead lap. What was your mindset there? Was it just try to get out in front of the leaders and get back on the lead lap and then have someone else behind you get the lucky dog, or were you focused on more or less on just being in a spot to even get back on the lead lap?
The mindset was pretty much beat Hank. I figured if I could stay in front of him, whether I was in front of the leader or not, I'd get the lucky dog. And then when he passed Blaine, I had to pass Blaine to pass him. So I got by him. I let Blaine get back by, and yeah, it worked out. We got the caution there, and just not really enough time. You know, you get the lucky dog in these things, and you got to start at the back. And oh man, what did we have? 4 or 5 laps to go. We went green the last time when I was lined up in 5th, and yeah, it's just not enough time. But good run overall. I think Blaine's 2 for 2 here now. Not
He
even.
He is indeed. He ended up winning last year as well. One thing I gotta ask you though, because it was looking like he was running away on that final restart, but you drove it really hard there into 3 and 4, and it actually stuck. You closed up about a 7 car length gap to only about maybe 2.5 car lengths through that corner. Do you think maybe if you had been close enough, you could have attempted maybe a bump and run or something like that? I mean, if you'd been within striking distance, what could you have done with the 44 to try and make sure that you were going to be the one back to the checkered flag first?
Well, Blaine's a good kid, and I can't think of any time where he's intentionally wrecked me. So I probably wouldn't give him the bumper, but I think if I would have had another lap, I probably could have sent him up in 1 and 2 to get underneath him, going down into 3 and 4. But again, it's not easy. I could say that, but who knows? He pretty much led the pace all night, or led the race all night, excuse me.
Another thing I got to ask you here, and this time it's as an admin. We saw a couple of drivers get into it here tonight. We saw the 16 and the 33 make some contact for the lead. We saw, I think it was the 88 and the 20. They made some, or no, sorry, the 07 and the 20. They kind of had a little bit of a disagreement on the track, and we even saw their closing stage of this race, the 88 and the 44 getting together. Is this stuff you're going to be keeping an eye on here, or is this a little bit of a boys have at it attitude for this season?
So we're definitely keeping an eye on it. We don't want anybody intentionally wrecking anyone. I mean, whether it's for 20th, whether it's for the win, doesn't really matter. I don't want to see it. Nobody else really wants to see it. As far as what happened tonight, I mean, I'm going to have to go back and review. I'm actually looking at some of the stuff right now. I'm going to have to go back and review what happened. Specifically between Blaine and Bo, I don't think there's going to be, Blaine and Kyle, I don't think there's going to be any penalties out of it. I mean, Kyle, spun him out once the race was over, but I mean, we're sim racing here. Nobody's getting hurt, so, it didn't mess up the order or anything like that. So, yeah, we definitely keep an eye on it. We don't want to see it. We're trying to put good races together. Nobody wants to watch a bunch of people just messing around. They want to see us take it a little bit seriously. But at the same time, we're not gonna crack down too hard on people roughing each other up. They're 87 cars. We want to beat and bang. We want to put on a show. We just don't want anybody sending someone headfirst into the wall for a spot.
Put on a show. You guys did a tremendous finish here tonight at Rockingham. And Chris, we're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Oh man, I got to thank Zach Onsen and Hijinx Clothing for coming on, sponsoring again. That's awesome. I got to thank everybody watching. Got to thank everybody that keeps on showing up and racing. It's nice to have a big field. Started last season, we didn't have, I think, but 11 cars for this race. So it's nice to have double that. Thank you guys, as always, for putting on the broadcast. It's great to have you guys back this season. I feel like I haven't been able to talk to you in forever. I don't know what to say. You know what I mean? It's been a long time. It's good to get up here and finish in the top 3 again.
Absolutely. Well, that's Christopher Morse Jr., second place here tonight at Rockingham, North Carolina. Congrats there, Chris. Obviously, this is going to help you in the point stands as well, heading into Richmond next week. So best of luck to you there.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
And it looks like we are now going to go down to Victory Lane and talk with tonight's winner, Blaine Atkin. Blaine, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir, I do.
Man, we saw you up at the front early on in this race, kind of get shuffled back. That caution comes out. It traps you a lap down. You get the lucky dog. You're the leader on that final restart. You'd been here before. You'd won this race 1 year ago. What was going through your mind there getting ready for that green-white checkered?
Oh, dude, I was scared to death. I thought they were definitely going to get me there because they were on a whole lot better tires than I was, and I was just scared that they were going to get to me before I could cross that line to get the checkered there.
Yeah, you certainly had a fast car all night long. We're one of those drivers, though, that got caught a lap down and had to work their way back to the front. What was it like trying to fight your way back to a position where you could challenge for the lead and then go take the lead in pretty dominating fashion.
I think it meant a whole lot because I mean, I know it stuck Hank a lap down there, and it kind of screwed him over a little bit. But I know he was definitely probably the best to win there. But I'm just glad I got back on the lead lap before he did, and we took the checkered there and won it.
So Anthony brought up the word fight, and that's what we saw you do with your race car just prior to when you came down pit road for that green flag pit stop. I mean, we lost count of how many times that car nearly came around. I mean, what was your heart rate there trying to get that thing onto pit road when it seemed like every corner it wanted to snap around on you?
Actually, when I went down pit road, my right rear tire was flat. It was at 1% there, and I was like, dang, what the heck was happening? And I went down pit road, and I saw what was happening. I was like, oh, dang, and we need to save the tires a little bit better than that.
Well, the momentum is certainly on your side here, Blaine. You ended up finishing top 5 last week at Daytona. You win here tonight. Subsequently, you're going to be the points leader going into Richmond. And we touched on the fact that in the Grand National Series, you went to victory lane there. So is there anything from that type of car and that racetrack that you can apply into next week with these 87 cars at Richmond?
Oh, yeah, I still think it's going to be tire conserving. Shoot, I think I won the last Richmond race in these cars, so hopefully we can keep the momentum just with these cars there, and I think we really got a good shot.
Well, Blaine, congratulations on the victory here tonight. 2 for 2 in the 87 Cup Series here at Rockingham Speedway. We're going to give the opportunity now for some thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
Oh, yeah, I want to thank SP Carburetors, and I also want to thank Curb Appeal, Aiken Motorsports, and everyone that makes this league go on, especially you guys. You guys probably best broadcast crew that there probably is.
Well, that is Blaine Acken. He's going to finish P1 here tonight at Rockingham Speedway, heading into Richmond next week, which indeed he is correct. He is the defending winner of there, so we'll see if he can go 2 for 2 in back-to-back seasons. Congratulations on your win tonight, Blaine. We look forward to seeing what you're able to do next week and hopefully carry this consistency into the rest of the year.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So 2 tracks there that Blaine Acken very happy to see on the schedule at the beginning of the year. Here tonight, the track that he was the defending winner at, he doubles down with the victory at Rockingham. And I mean, you know, next week, I think it's very easily we got to point fingers to him as the favorite, Anthony.
Yeah, you know, he seems to know how to get it done, and go into a track that you're familiar with, especially in a car that you're also very familiar with, it does give you a little bit more confidence knowing that you know how to get your car around the track and really show the overall pace that you can have. So going into Richmond, definitely going to have some momentum. Taking this win into another place that he's familiar with, I would suspect we should see that 44 somewhere close to the front.
Oh, and by the way, the driver that he beat out tonight, the 3 of Chris Morse Jr., he finished runner-up at Richmond last year, so we may end up seeing that rivalry rekindle between those 2 drivers when we get to the short track next week. But you know, it'll be interesting to kind of also follow the fact, since it is a short track, potential fallout from today's event, as we saw a lot of sheet metal exchanged amongst drivers, battling for the lead, battling for positions inside of the top 10, and it's going to be interesting to follow those storylines as we head down this stretch.
Absolutely. We have a few rivalries that are going to be brewing later on in the season. It's a long one, Seth. So if you've got something against another driver, you certainly have your share of races and race tracks to get it done. Just looking at the schedule, we got Richmond next week, so a short track already, meaning that if you have a grudge, what better place to use the bump and run? And then you've got Darlington. In 2 weeks' time after that, you've got North Wilkesboro, another place that you could really settle an argument. You've got Phoenix. You've got a lot of tracks that if you've got something to settle, then take it to that track. And by the time we get to the end of the season, who knows? Maybe it will be a couple of rivals that are challenging for a championship, but so long way to go.
Definitely a long way to go. Only 2 races into this schedule, and so far this season, 2 great finishes, as Blaine Acken, the most recent winner here tonight in the North Carolina 200. It was a long one for us, a long one for these drivers, but a finish worth sticking around for. Anthony, appreciate you joining me in the booth tonight.
It's always fun to call these races. I love these cars, and I love the tracks that these drivers go to. So it's always fun to watch, and can't wait till the next races. It's a home race.
It definitely is. Next week, we're going to be in Richmond, Virginia for the Richmond 200 laps of racing at that short track green flag, scheduled to fly at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow night, we double down on your sim racing pleasure, as at 8 o'clock, we will be having the Dark Horse IndyCar Series at Circuit of the Americas, and then the Sarg Super Speedway Series. They'll be taking their green flag at 9 o'clock at Daytona International Speedway. So be sure to tune in for both of those events coming up tomorrow evening. But for one final time, for Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.